Welcome back to The Explainer. Today, we're diving into an epic tale of time travel, dark magic, and some seriously satisfying revenge. It's time to look at A Second Chance at Life, Grey's Overpowered Return. Let's get right into it. So think about this for a second. What if you could completely redo your life, but you got to keep all your future knowledge? Imagine literally dying in humanity's desperate final stand against this unstoppable monster known as the Liquidator, only to wake up 15 years in the past. And the kicker? Every single one of your hard-earned combat memories is perfectly intact. In his past life, our main guy, Grey, was, well, kind of a nobody. He was a weak, talentless foot soldier, basically just a disposable support unit destined to become cannon fodder on the battlefield. But now, armed with 15 years of grueling, blood-soaked combat experience and this mysterious, deadly dark energy that awakened right before he died, he's totally transformed. We are talking about going from a total zero to an absolute unstoppable force. Here's how this wild timeline plays out. 15 years in the future, Grey gets pierced straight through the heart by the Liquidator. It should be game over, right? But moments later, instead of fading away, he somehow heals himself and comes face to face with the deity Kronos. Kronos decides to cut him a break and sends him back. Bam! 15 years in the past, Grey wakes up in his sleepy hometown. And you know what? He doesn't just sit around questioning his sanity. He immediately puts that future battle experience to work, brutally putting his childhood bullies in their place. This catches the eye of the local swordmaster, Zarya, proving he absolutely deserves a recommendation to the world's most prestigious combat academy. Part 1. The World Union Academy. But, of course, before he can even start going to classes, Grey has to prove he isn't the weakling everyone assumes he is. Get this. 1. That is the exact number of swings it took Grey to completely obliterate a disaster-level ogre general. He actually packs up and leaves for the academy a month early just to hunt down this specific monster. Why? To save his trainer, Zarya, and her entire village from total destruction. Just one swing of his newly awakened dark energy, and he effortlessly vaporizes a creature that would normally take a whole army to bring down. Now, because he severely injured his arm, unleashing that crazy dark energy to save the village, Grey actually has to take his academy entrance exam with just one hand. I mean, he still holds his own incredibly well, but it technically ends in a draw. However, this really famous teacher named Ariel is watching. She uses a super rare loophole called a Divine Eye admission. Basically, it allows a VIP teacher to instantly admit a student based purely on their hidden potential, totally bypassing those standard exam scores. As you might guess, this special treatment rubs the academy elites the wrong way. Enter Leon Hart, the school's incredibly arrogant #1 swordsman. During the opening ceremony, he actually gets up and declares, "Everyone deserves to be here except the guy who got in through the back door." He makes this huge scene demanding Grey's expulsion. Ariel, totally unfazed, steps up and offers a massive bet. If Grey can't kill a disaster-level ogre general within 1 full year, he and all the other special admission students will be expelled. Leon Hart smugly accepts, thinking it's literally impossible. But here is the absolute best part, the ultimate punchline. Grey already killed one, weeks ago. What this idiot Leon Hart doesn't realize is that Grey literally just slaughtered an ogre general before school even started, meaning Leon Hart lost the bet the very second he opened his mouth. Ariel just casually glances over at Grey and gives him this tiny, subtle signal to stay perfectly quiet. Let the kid dig his own grave, right? Moving on to Part 2, Mastering the Dark Power. You see, Grey isn't just a monster with a sword. His future knowledge turns him into a walking cheat code in Magic's class, too. To really grasp why he's so overpowered, we need to talk about something called Odo. Odo is this hidden life force energy that makes casting powerful spells significantly easier without completely draining the user's standard magic, or Aether. In his past life, Grey learned all the secrets of Odo from the world's strongest mage, Bella. By bringing this futuristic knowledge back in time with him, Grey has this absolute, flawless mastery over basic magic efficiency that completely baffles his teachers. And we get to see this in action when a petty teacher tries to humiliate Grey by forcing him into a magic duel with, you guessed it, Leon Hart. Leon fires off this totally basic, standard-sized Aether bullet. In response, Grey casually whips up a massive, super compressed Aether sphere that absolutely dwarfs Leon's attack. It's so wildly powerful that the teacher panics and has to throw up a desperate defensive barrier just to save Leon's life. And Grey's spell It shatters right through that barrier anyway and blows the golden boy clear across the room. Talk about satisfying. Part 3. Saving Bella and the Lab. Gray's mission isn't just about flexing on high school bullies, though. He has to save the future, and that means stopping the twisted experiments of Professor Bradley. Let's look at the steps Gray takes to handle this massive threat. Step 1, he teaches Bella, who was his future mentor but is currently just a struggling student, how to use Odo. This instant power-up saves her from being forced into one of Professor Bradley's fatal surgeries. Step 2, to expose this corrupt professor, Gray sneaks into Bradley's hidden mountain lab alongside Ariel and Bella. Step 3, inside, they find absolute horrors. Bradley is actually using human corpses and dark magic to try and summon the Liquidator. With Ariel's defensive barriers failing and Bella totally out of energy against Bradley's demonic flames, Gray goes all out for Step 4. He unleashes his dark energy, leaps straight through the fire, and completely beheads Bradley in a single devastating strike, shutting down the massive underground summoning ritual for good. Part 4, a weapon for the soul. Obviously, taking down a high-ranking professor paints a massive target on Gray's back. The corrupted elites at the academy aren't just going to let that slide, so they quickly send an assassin after him during the inter-year tournament. During the tournament, Gray gets matched up against a second-year student named Rada. But look at the stark contrast in their states here. Rada's power source? He's been secretly implanted with liquidator crystals by Bradley's shadowy allies. This drives Rada's mental state completely berserk and bloodthirsty, basically turning him into a rabid monster in the arena. On the flip side, you have Gray. His power source is his perfectly controlled dark energy, and his mental state remains completely calm and focused. Despite Rada's monstrous speed and insane protective magic, Gray adapts like a true veteran. Check out these combat adaptations. First, he actually dodges lightning-fast attacks by picturing his own body as a blade. Then, he strikes with such immense, heavy force that he smashes Rada completely through the arena's reinforced magic safety barrier. Finally, he masterfully unleashes just enough of his dark power to perfectly cut Rada down without actually killing him. By pulling this off, he ends the first year's 35-year losing streak in a single match and absolutely silences every single teacher who ever doubted the Divine Eye students. But Gray is running into a huge problem. Regular swords keep literally shattering under the sheer raw force of his dark energy. To fix this, Ariel takes Gray down to her massive personal treasure room. He ignores all the flashy, magical weapons and instead picks up this mysterious, dull, completely edgeless blade. Why? Because an edgeless sword is insanely durable. It's the only thing that can perfectly handle his overwhelming power without snapping in half. Plus, it just so happens to be crafted by someone who will eventually become a legendary blacksmith in the future. Now, this is where things get truly wild. While he's testing it out in the training grounds, the dull sword actually whispers to Gray. This sudden magical connection pushes him so incredibly hard that his chest literally splits open from the strain. He has to drop the sword while healers frantically rush in. And, as if that wasn't chaotic enough, at that exact moment, Liquidator allies violently detonate the Academy's secure material vault to steal dangerous assets. The Academy is officially under attack from the inside. Part 5. The Deadly Forest Survival Test. With the Academy completely compromised by these unseen enemies, the students are suddenly shipped off for a brutal outdoor survival test. The students are dropped right into the Gassia Mountain Range with some insanely grueling roles. They have to survive a 16-hour march through high-level monster territory. There's no food provided, meaning squads have to hunt and cook their own prey. They have to defend their camps from surprise night attacks launched by the instructors. And crucially, they have to maintain absolute silence when passing through the water lizard habitat. Right away, Gray proves his worth as a leader. He guides his squad, easily hunts down a giant bear monster to feed them, and flawlessly detects the teacher's secret night ambush just by listening for movements that sounded a little too human. But you know it wouldn't be that easy, right? Things go horribly wrong. Step 1, the class enters the absolute deadliest zone, the water lizard habitat, where making a sound means death. Step 2, an inexperienced student trips and makes a loud noise. Step 3, instantly, hundreds of armor-plated, bloodthirsty water lizards emerge from the trees, completely surrounding the unprepared class. Chaos erupts. While their main instructor, Hector, is desperately fighting off the beasts and screaming for backup, another teacher named Wormel does the unthinkable. He actively disables all communication magic. He deliberately blocks every single call for help and just stands there with this sinister, twisted smile on his face as the monsters close in on the terrified students. So, this leaves us with a terrifying question. Can Gray actually survive this ambush and protect his classmates from a corrupt teacher who clearly wants them all dead? I mean, with no escape, an endless sea of armor-plated monsters, and a traitor hiding in plain sight, how in the world is Gray going to fight his way out of this deadly trap? Talk about a cliffhanger! This perfectly sets the stage for Gray's next overpowered move. But to see exactly how he flexes his way out of this impossible situation and protects his squad, you're going to have to dive into the source material for yourself. That wraps up our explainer for today. What do you think Gray's next move is? Let that sink in. Keep exploring these epic stories, and I will catch you in the next one. We actually start at the absolute lowest point in the future. Humanity is on its last legs, just getting utterly slaughtered by this continent-erasing monster called the Liquidator. And our main character, Gray, he isn't some chosen hero or anything. He's literally just a support unit foot soldier. During this final, desperate charge alongside the world's greatest legends, he gets a beam punched straight through his chest. But as he's lying there dying, surrounded by fallen comrades, something wild happens. Instead of fading away, he awakens this mysterious dark power. A cosmic entity named Kronos steps in, triggering a massive magic circle that zaps Gray back in time with one singular mission: save the world. Point 1, the final battle. Point 2, a fatal wound and dark awakening. Point 3, rebirth in Renato Village, 15 years in the past. In the blink of an eye, Gray's dropped right back into his frail, unconditioned teenage body. He wakes up on a peaceful hill outside his old hometown, exactly 15 years in the past. At first, it feels like a dream, but the strange wound on his arm proves it is absolutely real. He's back. And while he lost his crazy future physique, he retains something way more valuable: the memories, the combat IQ, and the tactical mindset of a veteran soldier who has literally survived the apocalypse. Section 1. A second chance at life. Let's look at what happens when Gray goes back and decides to handle his immediate, localized problems before, tackling the whole end-of-the-world thing. Gray quickly realizes he has a massive internal cheat code. On paper, his body is incredibly weak, zero talent. But when his old childhood bully, Velder, corners him and forces him into a practice duel with wooden swords, Gray completely flips the script. To Gray's veteran eyes, the bully's attacks look like they're moving in slow motion. Using perfect technique and absolutely zero hesitation, Gray easily disarms Velder and beats him down in seconds. It totally proves that true strength isn't just about raw muscle, right? It's all about experience. Section 2. Awakening a dark hidden power. Step 1. Follow Zarya into the forest. Step 2. Survive an elite ogre ambush. Step 3. Confront the disaster-level ogre general. See, Gray knows from his past life that his village dojo master, Zarya, is destined to die fighting a monster nest. Refusing to let history repeat itself, he secretly follows her, and man, this escalates quickly into an absolute nightmare scenario. They don't just find a few stragglers. First, they're ambushed by an elite ogre, and immediately after, a disaster-level ogre general shows up. The general's roar sends hundreds of ogres into a blood-crazed frenzy. Within minutes, Gray's sword completely shatters, leaving him backed into a corner, totally defenseless. A desperate gamble, unleashing the Liquidator's dark energy. With no other choice and Zarya injured, Gray takes a massive risk. He forces his body to tap in to that terrifying, untamed dark power he absorbed from the Liquidator back in the future. And hey, it works. His sword is coated in dark energy and he slaughters the ogre general, saving the village. But the sheer, untamed force of this energy absolutely wrecks his right arm. It leaves it paralyzed and marked with this creeping, ominous black stain. Section 3. Shaking up the Academy. Divine Eye Admission, a rare loophole allowing a VIP evaluator to instantly admit a student purely on hidden potential. So Gray heads to the entrance exam for the most prestigious school in the world, the World Union Academy. With his right arm completely useless, he actually fights his evaluator to a draw, using only his left hand. Most judges just write him off as weak, but Professor Ariel, she possesses this magical sight that sees a person's soul and hidden potential. She spots the terrifying dark energy chained up inside him. Recognizing his true worth, she uses that highly controversial Divine Eye admission loophole to grant him a backdoor entry as candidate number 513. This backdoor entry instantly sets up a massive rivalry. We're talking Gray versus Leon Hart, the arrogant rank #1 swordsman and total golden boy. Leon throws a huge public fit over Gray's admission. He actually bets Professor Ariel that he can hunt an ogre general by the end of the year just to prove special admissions are a joke. If he fails, he literally becomes her errand boy. But the hilarious irony here, the thing we know but Leon doesn't, is that an ogre general is the exact disaster-level monster Gray already solo-killed weeks ago. Odo, a forgotten life force technique from the future that makes magic vastly easier to cast. Gray just continues to accidentally flex on the entire academy. In a basic magic class, the teacher tries to humiliate him by putting him in a duel against Leon Hart. Bad idea. Gray uses his future knowledge of this Odo technique to cast an insanely compressed aether bullet. It blows up half the classroom and sends Leon flying. Later on, Gray uses this advanced future theory to privately tutor a struggling student named Bella. And get this, Gray knows she's destined to become the world's most powerful magical sage. Section 4. Uncovering a Deadly Conspiracy. Professor Bradley's crimes: illegal human experimentation, 14 forbidden spells, and attempting to summon the liquidator. By helping Bella, Gray actually saves her from being handed over to a corrupt teacher, Professor Bradley, for what he called special surgery. Gray, Ariel, and Bella raid Bradley's hidden lab up in the mountains and uncover a literal horror show. Bradley is guilty of some incredibly dark stuff. A brutal fight breaks out, and Gray is forced to draw on his dark power to speed blitz and decapitate the corrupt professor before the guy can burn them all alive with dark flames. As Ariel says, the power leaking through is the power of the liquidator. Deep beneath the lab, they uncover a horror that really changes everything. It's a massive underground portal fueled by human sacrifices. Ariel analyzes it and realizes the terrifying truth. The energy leaking through is the liquidators. This proves that someone highly ranked inside the academy, backed by massive funding, is actively trying to summon the very monster that destroys the world in 15 years. So, the apocalypse? It isn't a random event. It is 100% an inside job. Section 5. Pushing Past Human Limits. In the inter-year arena battle, it's Gray's tactical strikes versus Radha's surgically enhanced reflexes and demonic liquidator energy. To handle this escalating conspiracy, Gray realizes he has to master his power before it straight up kills him. He undergoes brutal, soul-crushing physical training with Hector, a master swordsman, to harden his body against the dark energy's recoil. And this training is immediately put to the test during the arena battle. Gray is matched against Radha, a second-year student who has actually been surgically altered by the conspirators. They implanted him with a core of liquidator energy. Right in front of the entire school, Radha transforms into a demonic flurry of tentacles, forcing Gray to risk his life and unleash his dark power publicly to cut the monster down. A dull, limitless sword forged by a future master. Gray barely survives that fight, but he does win. As a reward, Ariel takes him down to her personal treasure vault so he can find a weapon that won't just shatter under his immense power. Gray is instinctively drawn to this strange, edgeless blue blade. It's completely dull, meaning it can't cut normally, but it flawlessly channels his dark energy without breaking. Even more fascinating, Ariel reveals it was forged by a nobody named Metal M. Norm, someone Gray knows is going to become the absolute greatest magic blacksmith in history. Section 6. The Forest Ambush Cliffhanger. Step 1. Forage for your own monster meat. Step 2. Survive nighttime ambush drills. Step 3. Enter the water lizard territory in absolute silence. You'd think armed with his new weapon, Gray might get a little break, right? Nope. Danger never stops. Shortly after, a mysterious explosion rocks the academy, proving those conspirators are actively stealing dangerous materials. Gray's class is thrown into a hellish, week-long survival march into the Gastia mountain range. The tension is incredibly high here. These exhausted paranoid students are forced to hunt giant monster bears for food and survive surprise nighttime assassinations by their own teachers. Finally, the completely sleep-deprived first years enter the most dangerous zone of all, the territory of the water lizard, where even a single sound means certain death. One misstep in the silent zone triggers absolute chaos. The situation is impossibly fragile. They are literally walking on eggshells. But then, an exhausted student trips. The loud thud completely shatters the silence of the forest. In an instant, absolute chaos erupts. A massive horde of bloodthirsty, armored water lizards swarm out of the trees, completely surrounding the terrified first years. With the teachers overwhelmed and ordering a retreat, can Gray and his squad possibly survive this brutal ambush? The situation goes from bad to just straight up impossible. Even Hector, who is a master swordsman, lands a clean, full power strike on a lizard, only for his blade to bounce harmlessly off its impossibly thick scales. Realizing they're completely outmatched, the teachers scream for the students to retreat. So we're going to leave you with this massive cliffhanger, trapped deep in a deadly forest, completely surrounded by disaster-level armored beasts. How is Gray going to use his veteran combat IQ and his brand new limitless sword to fight his way out of this? You'll have to wait to find out, but one thing is absolutely certain. In a world trying to end itself, experience really is the ultimate weapon. Okay, so let's jump right into this recap. Our main character is a guy named Kay, and he's the #1 ranked player in a game called Dreamside. But suddenly, the game updates into reality, and he gets thrust into a suicide mission tutorial. Over 100 players are thrown into hell difficulty. Just to put that into perspective, in the game's entire history, this difficulty was cleared exactly 1 time. And yeah, the guy who cleared it was Kay. But back then, he had dozens of extra lives. Now he's only got 1, and the sheer terror of that reality is really starting to set in. The absolute core of this terrifying new world is something called dungeonization. This instantly grounds us in the mechanics of this new reality. Portals basically open up out of nowhere in the real world, spitting out monsters and turning entire cities into dungeons. If players don't clear these zones within a set time limit, the monsters multiply and break out. It's literally a ticking time bomb. And this totally alters the stakes. Think about it. In the original game, failing to clear a dungeon in time was just an annoying timer penalty, right? But in reality, a dungeon break means monsters spilling out into living rooms and slaughtering families. The psychological weight of this hits Kay incredibly hard. Hiding just isn't an option anymore. As the #1 ranker, clearing the dungeon is literally the only way to stop a full-scale massacre. Now look at how this timeline builds his totally overpowered foundation. Kay speedruns this impossible infernal tutorial using his veteran knowledge and an S-rank heavenly body skill. Literally 1 minute in, he exploits a known server bug where monsters freeze while adjusting to Earth's atmosphere, and he easily decapitates the goblin boss. By minute 3, he's surviving a brutal debuff, like a status effect that drops his movement speed below 0. And right at the 5-minute mark, he perfectly dodges and crushes a giant stone golem's core with a massive weapon called Murik's hammer. It's insane. Clearly, Kai is playing on a completely different level than everyone else. After unlocking a mana-tracking skill called Ryan and slicing a demon woman right in half, he finishes the tutorial and returns to Earth. But he's in for a massive shock. While he was trapped in that grueling tutorial space fighting for his life, 3 whole months have passed in the real world. Which brings us to part 1. Enter the gunslinger idol. So, returning to a ruined apocalyptic soul, our OP protagonist actually isn't the only veteran player making waves. While Kay was gone, the world had to adapt, and this brings us to this hilarious contrast. Korea's biggest, sweetest pop star, Choi Hana. Back in the game, she used a voice changer to play as a middle-aged, fearless, and deadly top 12 gunslinger named Clark. She tries to hide this secret identity, but when the apocalypse hits, her poor manager has to watch in absolute horror as his cute, innocent pop star summons a magic revolver and blows a hole straight through a goal. All right, moving into part 2, mutants and player killers. You know, the apocalypse didn't just bring monsters from other worlds, it brought out the absolute worst in humanity. And that leads us to the terrifying reality of PKs, or player killers. These are red-marked players who act essentially as serial killers, using the apocalypse to farm human lives for experience points. We see this firsthand when a death row convict named Don uses his explosive powers to ambush a police officer named Jasaw and his survivor group, literally just to raise his stats. During a massive E-rank dungeon break, everything converges. Hana is desperately dodging the dungeon boss while being shot at by these prisoner PKs, and the tension is just unbearable. Just as a fatal blow is about to cut Hana in two, Kay steps in to save the day. He takes out the PK Don and blocks the boss's strike. Then, to everyone's shock, Kay uses Officer Desau's high-level Wave Hunter sword, a weapon that was supposedly level-locked, to completely obliterate the newly evolved Lord Demon Bonichi. So, with the survivors temporarily safe, the party tracks down the source of this sickening poison in the air. This takes them into an E-rank plant dungeon called the Garden of Death. And while some arrogant rich kid in the party cowers in fear, Kay steps up and literally mows the lawn, soloing the massive plant king to claim a cure flower. But this reveals something much darker. A disturbing POA virus that forcefully mutates normal humans into grotesque dungeon soldiers based on their darkest desires. This reveals the real threat pulling the strings behind the scenes. It brings us to the overarching villains, known as the Company. They're a dark faction of rogue players and NPCs who are purposely speeding up dungeon breaks, using these mutated flowers. They're actively feeding normal humans to monsters to force horrific evolutions, and you can always recognize them by their distinct mark, a lightning bolt piercing 2 moons. That takes us right into part 3, boarding the ghost train. Tracking these forced mutations and chasing down survivors leads our group deep into the dark subway tunnels. After barely surviving a cannibal streamer who mutated into a giant beast, they run straight into a massive, moving Class 5001 dungeon. In classic overpowered style, Kay just speedruns this ghost train. They discover young players tricked into bad contracts, having their souls stolen and bodies turned into weak kobolds. Furious at this cruelty, Kay totally ignores the dungeon rules. He boards without a ticket, punches the giant goblin conductor's chest in, and storms a hidden goblin black market to save these stolen human souls. Deep in the train, we get a major twist at the black market. Here, they meet Jack, who is renowned as the game's most cutthroat top merchant. Only, plot twist, Jack is actually a 14-year-old boy wearing a unique angel collar. They realize a cruel imposter has stolen his identity using a powerful mind-controlling item called the Goblin Hat to run this completely evil soul-trading operation. And this leads to an epic clash right there in the train cars. The fake Jack tries to trap the real Jack with a cursed two-faced contract, but it completely fails because the real Jack's unique earrings literally deflect all lies. Desperate, the imposter uses the Goblin Hat to summon an invincible lichen. A terrifying banshee boss wakes up, but the lichen just easily rips her head off. But then, Kay steps in and severs the magical contract chains. The lichen finally realizes fake Jack is an unworthy king and violently rebels against the imposter. But the battle isn't over yet. Fueled by the POA virus and a planted dungeon flower, the lichen starts to forcefully evolve into an uncontrollable giant goblin. To stop it, Kay takes a massive risk. He actually puts on the Goblin Hat himself, activating the Chimamorio soul armor. Cloaked in this ghostly energy, Kay creates an opening, exposing the company's planted dungeon flower on the beast's neck so Hana can snipe it with a perfect shot. It's an incredible team combo. Let's jump into part 4, the amusement park nightmare. Okay, so with the lichen tamed into this tiny, cute pet form and the stolen souls temporarily pacified, the group needs an item called the Goblin Orb to permanently free them. This quest takes them to the World Lot amusement park, but the place is totally bizarre. They walk into a pristine time loop illusion where normal families are wandering around. To avoid drawing attention, they literally wear schoolgirl disguises. When that inevitably fails, Hana throws a full epic idol concert on stage to pull the aggro of all the hidden monsters. It works, but the illusion shatters, plunging the whole park into night operation. Here's the terrifying part. World Lot isn't just a normal dungeon with random spawns. It is a psychological trap being actively monitored by the company. The sheer terror of this place sets in as the sky goes dark. The park literally scans their minds and begins spawning actual nightmares pulled directly from the player's deepest, most paralyzing traumas. The stakes immediately skyrocket here. First, they have to face Han's childhood trauma, a terrifying giant centipede. Then, they fight Hana's dreaded level 200 noble vampire, Norton. But the ground really shakes when Kay's ultimate nightmare materializes, the S-class colossal dragon, Kamucho. Just to give you an idea, in the original game, just looking at this beast could drive a player completely insane. Realizing the sheer scale of the danger, Kay tells everyone to run. Leave now if you want to live. But things go from bad to apocalyptic in seconds, because the dragon isn't the only thing the dungeon pulled from Kay's mind. A new entity enters the battlefield right alongside the dragon, and it's something absolutely none of them expected. An exact full-power S-class clone of Kay himself spawns right from the illusion. This copy is armed with his absolute endgame skills, forcing our overpowered hero to literally fight his own max-level avatar while a dragon breathes black fire all around them. The company is watching this all unfold, waiting to turn this corrupted dungeon into a weapon.
Realizing the only way to end the nightmare is to kill the boss at the source, Kei sprints straight toward the dark portal at the center of the park.
We leave off on a massive cliffhanger just imagine this for a second. What if a literal quest window popped up right in front of you, offering real-world rewards? You're sitting at the absolute bottom of the food chain, and out of nowhere, this floating digital interface just offers you a way out. Well, this is exactly the crazy reality our main character gets thrown into. Part 1. A loser gets a system. We're starting our chronological journey with Soo-hyun. He's a high school failure who gets bullied literally every single day, right up until this magical mission window unexpectedly materializes in front of him. At first, he's thinking his life is just some tragic webtoon, but when he accidentally hits accept, yeah, everything changes. It's wild to see just how hopelessly weak Soo-hyun starts out compared to the thugs tormenting him. Thanks to a new system ability, he can actually see the RPG stats of the people around him. And while his bullies are rocking average or pretty decent physical attributes, Soo-hyun is sitting at absolute rock bottom. We're talking E-rank physical stats across the board. His strength, his speed, his endurance, they're all practically non-existent at this point. But here's where it gets fun. The system gives him a way to bridge that gap. By completing these totally absurd daily quests, he's rewarded with these RPG-style cards. And it starts out simple enough, right? A tutorial quest gives him a gold card that instantly makes him grow 3 centimeters taller. Another card completely cures his bad eyesight, so boom, he no longer needs glasses. He's literally physically upgrading his own body, exactly like a video game avatar. Part 2. First quests and new powers. So, as Soo-hyun starts knocking out these tutorial missions, the system rapidly cranks up the difficulty. It starts forcing him to stand up for himself. He can't just be this passive NPC anymore. The system straight up demands action. Just look at how aggressively the system scales the danger here. It pushes him from simply apologizing to his mom, which, earns him his first card, to a way riskier task, securing a kiss from the school beauty. He barely survives that one by settling for an indirect kiss using a juice box. But the system doesn't stop. It ultimately forces him into a full-on physical brawl with his classroom tormentors. And the catch? If he gives up, the system vanishes forever. So armed with this bizarre but surprisingly effective arsenal, our guy actually starts fighting back. He gets a boxer's jab skill that directly uploads martial arts mastery right into his brain. He's got a platinum spy or peek ability that lets him see his opponent's stats so he can measure exactly who he can and absolutely cannot beat. He even uses a magical recovery bean to instantly heal up mid-fight. And the best part? He does all of this while rocking a hilariously twisted X-shaped tank top that somehow terrifies the local delinquents. Moving on to Part 3, defeating the school boss. The stakes hit a total breaking point when the system forces Soo-hyun into a mission to defeat Hudjin. This guy is the untouchable, Mike Tyson-esque leader of West High. Hudjin is an absolute monster in a fistfight, and with Soo-hyun's E-rank stats, one clean hit will literally put him in a coma. Now, Soo-hyun isn't stupid. He knows he can't win a fair fight, so he relies entirely on his accumulated system items just to survive Hudjin's devastating speed. He basically acts as a human punching bag, clinging to Hudjin and taking brutal hits just to exhaust him. Then, right before he's about to pass out, he pops his recovery bean to fully restore his stamina. But his real trump card? It's a gold item that grants him an extra 100 kilograms of raw physical strength for exactly 5 seconds. By stacking his measly base strength with that temporary gold card, Soo-hyun delivers a monstrous 156-kilogram punch that completely knocks out the school leader. It's the ultimate upset. And with that single, perfectly mathematically calculated strike, Soo-hyun accidentally becomes the brand new boss of West High. Which brings us to Part 4, the Gangbook Unification War. Because becoming the leader of West High triggers a massive new overarching quest. He now has to unite all 4 fractured territories of Gangbook. So what started as a desperate quest just to survive being bullied has now snowballed into a full-blown turf war. To even survive this war, he's got to build up his arsenal. He unlocks an ability called Master of Cards, which lets him merge his useless bronze and silver cards into powerful gold ones. This gives him some truly insane skills. Like the Masochist card, which sounds bizarre, I know, but it's an overpowered ability that exponentially increases his punching power every single time he takes a hit. So, with Gangbuk split into these 4 distinct territories, Suhyun launches an all-out tactical gang war. And through sheer tactical brilliance and, let's be honest, heavily exploiting the system, he systematically crushes South High's brute force leader, Ken Senak, and completely outsmarts East High's cunning strategist, Jaeha. But here's the thing. He doesn't win this unification war alone. A crazy new system mechanic comes into play called subordinate awakening. Basically, when his allies are backed into a corner, they literally awaken their latent potential mid-battle. They unlock massive stat boost and these exclusive combat styles that turn the tides against overwhelming enemy numbers. Sohyun's crew essentially turns into a supernatural army.
Part 5. The North High monster appears. Right when Suhyun thinks he's got Gangbuk on lock after defeating the South and the East, the ominous North High finally makes its move. They send down their number 2 fighter, Daniel. And let me tell you, Daniel is operating on an entirely different level.
When Suhyun uses his peak ability to check Daniel's stats, the system just completely glitches out. It really emphasizes the terrifying hopelessness of this new enemy's power scaling. His stats aren't just S rank. They're entirely beyond the system's current capacity to even measure. In that moment, Suhyun realizes all his martial arts cards and stat boosts mean absolutely nothing against this kind of raw power. Completely defeated, he's dragged before Choi-yun, the mysterious supreme leader of North High. Soo-yun is given a chilling ultimatum, and honestly, he only barely escapes with his life. Choi-yun projects this crushing pressure that makes one thing abundantly clear. Resistance is totally futile. Which leads us to our final act, Part 6, the ultimate system clash. Surviving that brutal encounter with North High actually grants Soo-hyun his very first MasterCard. But it comes with a terrifying revelation about the overarching plot of this entire war. This MasterCard is called Drain Magic. It is an absolute game changer. It allows him to drain the strength of his enemies to permanently buff his own weak baseline stats. It's an incredibly broken, almost villainous ability. But acquiring it, it forces Soo-hyun to connect some very dark dots. Putting all the pieces together, Soo-hyun realizes exactly why Choi-yun's stats are unreadable. He figures out why a former legend of Gangbuk was left in an unexplained coma, completely drained of life. And it finally makes sense why North High's leader rose to power so impossibly fast. Here's the massive plot twist. Choi-yun is also a system player. Yeah, he received quests way before Soo-hyun ever did, but he chose a dark, ruthless path to get to the top. While Soo-hyun uses the system to protect his friends and trigger their awakenings, Choi-yun uses the exact same system to literally drain his enemies, and probably even his allies, leaving them completely hollowed out so he can hoard unimaginable strength. And that brings us to the final stakes, leaving us on a massive cliffhanger. Our zero-to-hero protagonist is now locked in a supernatural gang war against a mirrored, corrupted, and wildly overpowered version of himself. Choi-yun has been playing this game much longer. He's got access to far more advanced MasterCards, and if Soo-hyun doesn't figure out a way to stop him, Choi-yun is going to drain the dangerous beings in existence. Like, Lin Jir is just dealing with eccentric customers. He thinks he's offering warm hospitality and simple life advice. But to the monsters and mages of Norkin, he's this unfathomable, shadowy entity dealing in forbidden knowledge. It's so good. Now, to really grasp the sheer absurdity of Lin Jir's daily life, we gotta talk about how power works here. The Truth Society ranks threats from abnormal, which is just your basic entry-level monster, all the way up to destructive and indescribable. We're talking walking nukes and literal gods. Setting these stakes is absolutely crucial, because Lin Jir, a dude with zero magical aura himself, casually bosses around beings at the very top of this chart. And the kicker? He has absolutely no idea. Let me show you exactly how this plays out. A severely wounded hunter named Zishu stumbles into the shop out of the rain. She's been violently betrayed by her own guild. Linkir takes one look at her and thinks, bad breakup. So he kindly offers her a boring book to distract her and a cup of hot tap water to warm up. But remember, Zishu is a high-level hunter in a cutthroat world. In her eyes, that book is a cursed manual of corrupted blood magic, and the tap water, a chalice of pure, potent beast blood meant to unlock her hidden potential. And then Lingjie hits her with this generic retail therapy advice. He says, sometimes you just need to unleash your inner beast and confront your true self. Basically, treat yourself, you'll get over your ex. But Zishu's traumatized mind hears the cold, commanding voice of a supreme dark god, ordering her to slaughter her betrayers. And because she is so utterly convinced that the hot water is a magical elixir, her sheer belief actually triggers a massive power-up in her soul. The fallout from this is, well, it's explosive. Armed with this new power, Zishu goes on an absolute rampage. She shatters these massive, fortified church gates like they're wet tissue paper. When she finally corners Casper, the hunter who betrayed her, her aura is so terrifying it forces him into this grotesque beast mutation, and he basically dies from his own unstable power. Then she tracks down the mastermind, Elix, and drags him through a grueling 5-hour bloodbath. All of this absolute carnage happened just because Lingir wanted to cheer up a heartbroken girl. But the crazy thing is, Zishu wasn't even his first accidental conquest. If we rewind about 2 years, this accidental empire actually started with a guy named Frank Wilde. Frank is this terrifying, legendary dark mage. He walks into the bookstore and Lingir just sees a lonely, scarred old man who really needs a hobby. So he hands him a dense academic book on ancient Chinese dialects. To Frank, this isn't linguistics. This is a forbidden tome of demonic language that unlocks catastrophic spells. Frank is instantly humbled, convinced Lingir is some primordial hermit. Just to put Frank into perspective here, 10,000. That is the exact number of square kilometers this guy reduced to absolute ash during a historic battle. 10,000! Frank is a walking weapon of mass destruction, a literal destructive tier threat feared by entire nations. And Lingia treats him like that one quirky regular who spends way too much time lingering in the history aisle. He is unknowingly commanding living superweapons. Okay, flash forward to today, and we meet Joseph. Joseph is a legendary former Radiant Knight from the Secret Tower faction, but right now he's crippled and deeply tormented by this apocalyptic curse from the Candleless Sword. His mind is literally broken by years of agonizing hallucinations. He walks into the bookstore looking for a hidden threat, but Lingir just sees a highly stressed, disabled retiree. So Lingir gives him some comforting words and a copy of a fantasy novel that Lingir literally wrote himself. He gives the old man a classic motivational one-liner. You don't need to be a hero. Just fulfill your destiny when the time is right. Just saying, enjoy your retirement, man. But the divine energy radiating from the seemingly normal book instantly purges that ancient, festering curse right out of Joseph's soul. Decades of excruciating madness wiped away in seconds. Joseph drops to his knees, viewing Lingir as a supreme, benevolent being. Boom! The entire Secret Tower faction is now fanatically loyal to the bookstore. When you lay the whole thing out chronologically, the scope of Lingir's accidental genius is just staggering. 3 years ago, he opens a humble little shop. 2 years ago, he completely arms the Dark Mages via Frank. Last week, he hijacks the Hunters by empowering Jishu. And today, he basically owns the top brass of the Secret Tower. Through entirely random, mundane retail interactions, this guy has systematically cornered the geopolitical power of every single major faction in the city. But honestly, the comedy hits absolute peak with his newest hire. Lingir finds this traumatized, dirt-covered girl in an alley. Feeling like a decent human being, he hires this runaway teen to organize shelves and gives her a safe place to stay. He has absolutely no idea he just adopted Subject 277. She's an incredibly lethal homunculus who literally just leveled a massive Truth Society lab to escape, and she thinks she's been granted asylum by a primordial god, swearing to protect his domain at all costs. And let me tell you, Subject 277 does not mess around with customer service. When undercover police start snooping around the shop looking for her, the tension skyrockets. Without making a single sound, she unleashes this monstrous homunculus aura, locking onto the cops with absolute killing intent. The spiritual pressure is so intense it terrifies these tough investigators into total, paralyzing submission. The police inspector is literally crying tears of relief when he finally gets out the door. And Lingir? He's just at the cash register, totally oblivious, thinking his shy new employee is just really good at handling difficult customers. Okay, so all of this builds up to one massive, world-breaking climax. Enter Vincent. He's an ordinary priest of the Moon Church going through a devastating crisis of faith, and he secretly chain smokes to deal with the stress of his corrupt bosses. Lingir, just trying to be a good neighbor, hands the guy a book to help him quit smoking. But what Vincent actually receives is the apocalyptic Bible of the Sun artifact. Yes, a dead-era relic that triggers the literal rebirth of a forgotten god. This triggers arguably the most visually stunning, high-stakes battle sequence of the whole story. Vincent is framed for heresy and cornered by a squad of corrupt assassins. Completely out of options, he fully synchronizes with the sun core hidden inside the book, and the transformation is, well, it's apocalyptic. Blinding golden light shatters his chains, and he instantly incinerates the apostles who came to execute him. In mere seconds, a chain-smoking, depressed priest skyrockets to a destructive tier powerhouse, all because of a generic quit-smoking aid. And the catalyst for all of this? Lingier told him, after a very dark night, the sun always appears. Just a cheesy, uplifting metaphor to cheer up a guy having a bad day at the office. But to Vincent, it was divine prophecy. It gave him the unshakable conviction to literally become the new sun god and cleanse his corrupt church with holy fire. It perfectly encapsulates the pure genius of this story. I mean, think about how stressful it is just trying to make rent, dealing with weird customers, keeping a small business afloat, right? That is Lingier's entire world. Meanwhile, he has accidentally established an absolute monopoly over the hunters, the dark mages, the secret intelligence spies, and even the literal gods of Nokken. He's rewritten the laws of reality. Yet, his biggest daily crisis is trying to figure out how to get more foot traffic so he can finally afford to fix his broken display window. Which leaves us with one massive, lingering question. With an entire army of the most lethal beings in existence ready to die for him and worshipping the ground he walks on, when, or even if, will Lingier ever actually realize he is the supreme overlord of this dark fantasy world? Or is he just going to keep handing out self-help books and hot tap water until he accidentally
changing the entire power balance of the game forever? And here's that inciting incident. The NPC who hired him completely turns on him, trying to rip the legendary reward straight out of his hands. So with absolutely nothing left to lose, Grid just cracks open the legendary item himself. He's fully expecting to become this unstoppable warrior, right? But instead, the system hits him with a massive curveball. A blacksmith class. But not just any blacksmith. The system announces him as Pogma's descendant, literally the first legendary class in the game's entire history.
Let's map out how this builds over time, because his progression is a complete roller coaster. Activating this legendary class completely resets Grid. He gets nuked from level 70-something straight down to level 1, and because of some incredibly unfortunate events right after, he dies repeatedly, dragging him down to a place most gamers didn't even know existed, negative levels. From level -3, leaping to 21, and grinding up to 83, his stat check journey is nothing short of insane.
Yeah, you heard that right. Level -3. Just let that sink in for a second. Grid's stats completely bottom out. He's so penalized by the system that he can't even step outside the safe village because literally everything nearby is over level 100. Plus, he only has 3 gold and 11 silver to his name. He can't even afford a 10 gold carriage ride to a lower level zone. He is completely, utterly stuck. So how on earth did he get to -3? Well, right after dropping to level 1, he stumbles into the Temple of Yatan, which is a level 150 area. Now, thanks to his new legendary class, he has 0 item equip limits, meaning he can stubbornly wear his level 70 gear despite taking massive stat penalties. He miraculously survives an ultimate attack from Yura, who happens to be the 5th-ranked player in the whole world, by using a legendary passive called Tenacity of Legends that grants him 5 seconds of invincibility. But in a tragic twist of pure comedic irony, he immediately dies to friendly fire from a named NPC, Doran. Boom! Negative levels. Trapped in a high-level village, Grid is forced to rely on the one thing he actually knows best, pure, grueling manual labor. He takes a quest to chop 500 logs. 2 hours in, he's flat on the ground with 0 stamina, but he pushes through. This absolute refusal to quit unlocks a hidden legendary limit break stat called Persistence. Suddenly, he tires way less easily. He marches over to the local mine, pulls out 170 chunks of iron ore, totally shattering the expectations of the NPC miners, and finally, claws his way back up to level 1. His weapon is Persistence. I absolutely love this moment. The game stripped him of his levels, his money, and his pride. But it couldn't strip him of his unbreakable, real-world work ethic. It was the sheer desperation to make money and escape his real-world debt that fueled this impossible grind. It's such a powerful reminder of how real-life struggles can translate into just unstoppable drive. Okay, so reaching level 1 restores his base class stats, giving him an absurd 182 total stat points, which is a massive advantage for a level 1 character. But the real game changer? That happens when he first steps up to a forge. Without any prior smelting experience whatsoever, Grid effortlessly measures a 730-degree furnace perfectly. The game system itself is literally guiding his hands. He's no longer just a struggling grinder. He's starting to realize his crafting class is completely busted.
Now, what's really interesting about this next part is the sheer statistical anomaly of his very first real creation. He makes Jaffa arrows. By mixing Jaffa and steel, he creates a projectile that just ignores enemy defense. But because he enters a state of total focus, the legendary blacksmith's breath skill activates. He accidentally forges epic rarity arrows, which permanently boosts all his stats by 4. Top-tier guilds like the Tzedakah Guild literally cannot believe an item this game-breaking exists.
To put this into perspective, normal arrows sell for maybe 3 silver. Grid's epic Jaffa arrows, they get snatched up at 72 silver each. That is 20 times the normal price. He sells all 99 of them instantly. That translates to a massive real-world payout that finally lets him clear some of that crushing real-world debt. Our unluckiest gamer is finally tasting success, for real.
But Grid's journey isn't just about sitting at an anvil making bank. He heads over to Winston Village, where he walks right into a 7th-generation forge run by an NPC named Old Khan. Now, Khan is being ruthlessly bullied by thugs from the Muro Company who are basically trying to steal his shop. Grid initially just wants to walk away, but a quest triggers. And Grid? Well, we know Grid doesn't walk away from good rewards.
What follows is absolute cinematic chaos. Grid has no sword, right? So he uses his epic Jaffa arrow to literally stab these level 35 thugs. He activates a new skill, Blacksmith's Fury, boosting his speed and power. But he gets cornered. In a desperate move, he runs upstairs and equips Valhalla, a unique rated golden armor with a level 250 requirement. Remember, because he's Pagma's descendant, he ignores all equip restrictions. He looks down at them, asks, "Have you ever heard of being overgeared?" before completely wiping them all out and skyrocketing straight to level 21. This epic victory secures the forge for a moment, but the Muro Company definitely doesn't give up. They propose a high-stakes blacksmith duel, and they bring in a ringer, Euphina. She is a prodigy with a completely broken ability called Perfect Copy. Before the duel even starts, she uses her level 7 Analyze skill on Grid to steal his crafting method. But she gets a system error. The system literally tells her his class is too high tier to read. No way, right? So she's forced to copy Khan's advanced skills instead, assuming that'll just have to be enough. So here is the ultimate setup for the climax of our explainer today. How does a guy who was literally just level -3 a few days ago defeat a prodigy with the game's absolute best copying mechanic? Especially when her copied skills are undeniably top tier.
While the entire square of Winston Village is completely packed, the fate of Khan's 7th-generation forge, and honestly, Grid's own pride, are entirely on the line here. Euphina is super confident. She works fast, melting her blade and finishing her weapon with plenty of time to spare, totally convinced that her luck and her stolen advanced skills will easily secure her the win.
Euphina crafts an epic-class seduction dagger with pristine stats. The crowd is absolutely amazed. But what about Grid? Grid is heads down, completely locked into a flow state. He's forging with such intense perfection that the merchant running the duel for the Muro Company actually starts sweating. He realizes Grid is about to drop something legendary, something that will leave Euphina's dagger with absolutely zero chance. So what does this corrupt company do? They literally have the village guards storm in and falsely arrest Grid for terrorism, just to stop the forging process. Crazy, right?
But they cannot stop his momentum. Grid eventually finishes the questline, uncovering the deep lore of his class. Khan reveals the history of the unique armor Valhalla and the sword Daneslave. Pagma himself once refused to take them, stating the true owner would appear someday. And when Grid finally reveals his identity, Khan realizes that Grid is that rightful heir, fully unlocking his massive class quests.
So, the crucial point here is what Grid actually does with this realization. Later on, despite being super frustrated with his low crafting stats, he forces his way through creating another weapon. He's totally exhausted, convinced it's just going to be a normal item. But as he sets the blade, a literal bolt of lightning crashes into the forge. The system announces the creation of a legendary item. It permanently increases all of Grid's stats by 25 and boosts his reputation across the entire continent by 1,000. Hilariously, he names the sword Failure, a totally ironic title for a weapon with such game-shattering stats. And Satisfy's system? It doesn't keep this a secret. A massive worldwide broadcast goes out to all 2 billion players, officially announcing that a player has gained a secondary legendary class.
Grid, the unknown, broke, burnt-out grinder, is suddenly the most wanted man on the entire server.
And that leaves us with one massive, lingering thought. Every single top guild is now hunting for him.
Before we get to the god-tier powers, let me ask you a question. What if you woke up in a deadly fantasy VR game as a level 1 character who's actively marked for assassination? Just imagine it. You log into your favorite game for a quick session, only to realize, wait, the logout button is gone? You can actually feel pain, and you've been forcefully spawned into the body of the most doomed character in the game's entire lore. That is the exact nightmare our protagonist faces today.
So, let's get into Section 1, the weakest ninth prince.
Our guy wakes up in the brutal demon realm, a place where literally only strength matters, and he knows that in exactly 5 years, his older brother Zephyr is going to massacre all the royal siblings for the throne. So what's his starting position to stop this? It is absolutely terrible. He's a 14-year-old level 1 with just 5 points in every base stat. To put that into perspective for you, a totally average random NPC starts at a 10. He is literally half as strong as a normal commoner. But he does have 2 hidden unique passive skills, Conquest and Protagonist Body. And as we're about to see, these aren't just your standard skills, they are absolute game-breaking cheat codes.
So, how does he get his first power spike? Well, it comes from an absolutely absurd sequence of events. Using his meta-knowledge of the game's map, he leads his orc guard, Karak, to a hidden dwarven shortcut. Now, because his stamina is so pathetically low, the game literally levels him up just for walking to the door. I mean, you can't make this up. But then, it all goes wrong. An enemy tribe attacks, he trips over a rock of all things, and gets caught in friendly fire from his sister Caitlyn's magic. He basically dies. Well, almost. He awakens in this weird mental void, meets a goddess of fate with mismatched eyes, and boom, he unlocks his second class, Knight of Conquest.
This moment brilliantly sets up his immediate turnaround. He snaps back to his body right in the middle of a losing battle, and Shutra activates his new class. He slams his blade into the ground and shouts, "Conquest is the power of kings, under the king's banner." Instantly, this blinding golden light erupts from him, buffing his entire squad. His orc general, Carrick, suddenly surges with this unbelievable power and literally knocks the enemy leader's head clean off. Just like that, the battle is won, and Shutra instantly jumps 3 levels.
That incredible victory brings us to Section 2, Awakening the Conqueror's Power.
Shutra quickly realizes that surviving this timeline means aggressively exploiting the world's mechanics. He is definitely not gonna grind the slow way. The secret sauce here is his leveling method. It's basically a copycat cheat code powered by that protagonist body passive we mentioned earlier. If he experiences something, he learns it, period. He literally asks his insanely strong brother Chris to punch him with aura magic and bam, he instantly unlocks aura level 1. He watches a spell get cast, cool, he learns fire arrow. His sister Felicia heals him, he copies the heal skill. He even just stares at a wall of dead dwarven text and the system gives him complete fluency. His growth potential is suddenly infinite.
But, infinite potential doesn't mean instant invincibility. During a rescue mission to save his sister Felicia, the squad gets ambushed by a giant mutant blood ogre. Now, on paper, Shutra is completely outmatched here. He's low on HP, totally out of mana, and this brute has massive health and armor. A normal player would absolutely wipe here, but Shutra uses tactical aggro. He buffs Karak with that golden conquest energy to hold the front line, which lets Felicia snipe the beast's legs. That creates the perfect opening for Karak to drop a massive meteor strike finish. It's brilliant.
So he hits level 10, upgrades his skills, and unlocks a legendary passive that basically makes enemy attacks magically miss him. He survived, the worst was over. Or, well, so he thought. But the dungeon wasn't empty.
Let's move deeper into the mountain for Section 3, the Dwarf Anvil's Secret.
Shutra convinces his siblings to divert to the legendary ruins of the Earth Dragon to find the thunder-birthing anvil. And things escalate incredibly fast here. In Hour 1, they bypass the Dungeon Guardians using a literal side skill explosion from Felicia. They find the anvil and start pumping magic into it, but then Hour 2 hits and it goes horribly wrong. A violent, dark purple energy lashes out and wraps around Felicia. It's a trap, a trial from the Earth Dragon itself for anyone it deems unworthy. Shutra actually grabs her hand, absorbing the raw destructive power himself. He absolutely refuses to break. The word conquer literally brands itself into his mind, and by Hour 4, the dust finally settles. He emerges alive, holding the legendary Thunderhammer.
And guys, the loot he gets here is absolutely absurd. The anvil's true power is dominion. So he walks outside, raises the Thunderhammer, and immediately mind controls the enemy's ultimate war beast, a giant swamp mammoth. He just turns it against the Red Orc army, trampling them with their own weapon. And while the army is getting completely crushed, Shutra casually walks back into the ruins, finds a secret vault, and bonds with Enkidu's gauntlet, the Earthshaker. His stats just absolutely skyrocket.
Which brings us to Section 4, the Demon King's Recognition.
All of this rapid, insane leveling catches the attention of the scariest being in this world. Returning to the capital, all the royal siblings are called into the Great Hall. The Demon King, Mitra, is just sitting there in complete, terrifying silence. His presence alone is so heavy, it makes Shutra's body feel like it's falling apart. But Shutra remembers the goddess's words. He is a king too. So he bursts into golden light and literally stares the demon lord down. And then, Mitra breaks his eternal silence, saying, Shutra Ignis, I look forward to seeing what you will conquer in the future.
The ripple effect of that single sentence is massive. The king actually speaking his name put Shutra officially on the map. He is no longer that ignored, weak ninth prince. Just look at the faction he starts building. He recruits General Vandal, a massive orc warlord. He earns the fierce loyalty of his genius mage sister, Felicia, and his insanely strong lyanthrop siblings, Chris and Caitlin. He even gets acknowledged by Sword Lord Ishgard, this hidden OP master who usually never even appears in the story. Shutra is perfectly setting up his pieces to survive that dreaded Year 517 massacre.
But as he levels up, the difficulty scales up just as fast. Let's look at Section 5, Slaying the Undead Dragon. A mysterious enemy using purple death energy is wiping out frontier regions. The mistakes escalate to literal raid boss levels. Shutra actually clutches this victory using pure RPG stat manipulation. First, he gets cornered by a hyper-fast skeleton knight and knocked unconscious. But in a dream state, a forest spirit named Greenwind awakens his inner power, and he returns to the battlefield wrapped in green light wielding the White Eagle shield. But the real threat? A massive zombie dragon named Partisan. To beat it, Shutra runs to a sealed legendary weapon, the Dragon Slayer Spear, Ascalon. He realizes the weapon requires a massive stat check to even pull it out. So right in the middle of the fight, he dumps every single unspent level up point he's been hoarding purely into strength. With a massive roar, he rips the spear from the stone, swings it once, and completely one-shots the zombie dragon.
He earns the title Dragon Slayer, levels up massively, and the immediate threat seems handled. But, as anyone who plays these games knows, the final boss always has a second phase.
This leads right into Section 6, The Dragon Heart Awakens.
The true mastermind isn't done yet. Shutra is deployed to the harsh eastern snowfields to intercept a massive barbarian invasion led by King Karuta. And the situation is just dire. Shutra arrives completely exhausted. He's out of breath, his aura is totally depleted, and his HP is flashing red. On the other side is barbarian King Karuta, fresh, bursting with overwhelming physical strength, and backed by a massive, bloodthirsty army. Even Shutra's ultimate domain spells are failing to hold the line here. He needs a miracle. He needs a power that only he can unlock. And here is the exact, broken mechanic that saves his life, the Dragon Heart. Shutra realizes that Green Wind, the spirit assisting him, is actually a fragment of the Watcher's soul, a literal elder dragon. To unlock his true potential, he can't just work with her. He has to dominate the power. He speaks the true name of the dragon, and the Watcher's power answers his conquest trait. He completely conquers the soul, and in this massive flash of purple and green energy, his third aura heart awakens as a literal dragon heart.
Okay, we have to geek out over this final stat check for a second, because the endgame skills he suddenly combos together are unreal. With the Dragon Heart, he now has infinite, godlike energy. He uses King's Knights to instantly summon his allies like Carrick across space, and then he activates Black Wraith, an ultimate awakening skill that drops a blinding, terrifying darkness over the entire battlefield. He strings these powers together absolutely flawlessly. Here's how this cinematic final sequence plays out. Shutra floods the field with a massive emerald vortex, instantly turning the tide. He drops the Black Wraith smoke, completely blinding the barbarians as shadows just rip through their ranks. Through all the chaos, he isolates King Karuta. Empowered by the Dragon Heart, Shutra hurls his weapon in a devastating final strike called Skull Crusher. The weapon spins through the air and just annihilates the barbarian king. The exact second the king falls, the remaining enemy army instantly breaks and surrenders to the Ninth Prince. It is total, absolute dominance. From the weakest level 1 joke to a dragon-slaying, army-crushing conqueror, Shutra's lit RPG journey is a total masterclass in
Let's dive into this. What exactly happens when a scrawny esports champion, a guy whose only real physical exertion is, furiously clicking a mouse, gets dropped straight into an afterlife reserved for the most legendary, battle-hardened warriors in history? Well, we are looking at the ultimate zero-to-hero journey of our main character, Taiho. It is a story of raw survival, incredibly quick thinking, and actually applying competitive gaming mechanics to literal life-or-death situations. Let's set the scene. Think of this as the opening cutscene of a blockbuster action game. Section 1. Game over, Hello Valhalla.
So, Taiho is an absolute legend in the gaming industry. I mean, he's literally one match away from securing his third consecutive world championship. The pressure is on, the hype is incredibly real, and then tragedy strikes in honestly the most hilarious way possible. He suffers a fatal faceplant right onto his keyboard. And the next thing he knows, a mysterious Valkyrie is dragging his confused soul to Valhalla. Why? Well, because in her eyes, all those virtual gaining duels he won made him a legendary warrior worthy of the halls of Asgard. Talk about a massive misunderstanding, right? But before Taiho can even process his own double death anxiety, he has to figure out the rules of this completely new server. In Valhalla, your power is dictated by something called a saga. Basically, a saga means that whatever legendary, heroic achievements you accomplished in life become your actual source of divine power in the afterlife. And since Taiho absolutely dominated in video games, his overpowered in-game achievements, especially his use of this legendary, awe-inspiring knight character named Kalstead, are about to become his literal physical weapons. But as we all know, knowing the rules and surviving the game are two entirely different things. Let's transition into Section 2, Unlocking the Gamer's Saga, where Taiho gets his first terrifying taste of combat. When Taiho's saga first activates, he sees a glowing system window floating in the air. A super familiar sight for a gamer, obviously. But there is a huge catch. His sync rate with his overpowered in-game avatar, Kalstead, starts at a measly 1%. Just 1%. This throws our terrified, vastly out-of-shape gamer into a desperate fight for survival, where he has virtually no power to fall back on. And the tutorial level, yeah, that's completely non-existent. Taiho is immediately thrust into a boss encounter against White Fang, a massive, terrifying beast wielding a giant hammer that is quite literally bigger than Taiho himself. The monster attacks, time seems to slow down, and Taiho scrambles, tripping over his own feet. But then, his gamer instincts kick in. He dodges the lethal swing by just a hair, and in that moment of pure adrenaline and desperate survival, his saga truly activates. It triggers this massive surge of electric power that allows him to slice the beast down in one clean, impossible sweep. Honestly, though, the absolute funniest part of this epic awakening is Taiho's internal reaction. While everyone else around him is screaming these guttural battle cries, Taiho is exasperated over the UI. He's literally whining, saying, "Why is this written so tiny? Is this some kind of joke? Couldn't it be bigger?" It's just a perfect comedic contrast. He's surrounded by bloodthirsty mythological warriors, but his mind is still firmly stuck in modern gamer complaint mode, criticizing the system's font size during a life-or-death boss fight. And this brilliantly illustrates our protagonist's progression. Taiho doesn't stay weak for long. He rapidly scales up using classic lit RPG-style mechanics. Tracking his first few months, on day 1, he unlocks the Immortal Warrior. By day 2, he's using Dragon Eyes to scan for enemy weaknesses. Within a week, he earns the Skull Crusher title, and it all builds towards the mythic Sword of the Sun. He just starts racking up achievements, spending runes on stats like agility and strength, and climbing the ranks faster than anyone in Valhalla's entire history. As Taiho levels up, the stakes get way higher. Moving into Section 3, the Black Fortress Siege. The dynamic completely shifts here from a solo survival game to a full-scale tactical raid campaign alongside massive armies. So the crucial point is how Taiho actually navigates this total chaos. He treats brutal life-or-death sieges exactly like a competitive video game walkthrough. First step, he exploits his Dragon Eyes to identify the boss monsters and their weaknesses. Next, he literally uses play-dead tactics to drop enemy aggro when things get a bit too hot. Then, he strikes the critical weak point for massive damage. And finally, he loots the runes to level up. He is literally speedrunning Norse mythology. Things get truly terrifying, though, when the raid team infiltrates the fortress control room. only to have their party crashed by Red Eyes, the ultimate monster of the Black Fortress. This beast is massive, lightning fast, and just furious. It immediately takes out the vanguard, forcing Taiho into a seemingly unwinnable corner where even his leveled-up speed isn't enough to save him. Mid-air, Taiho gets swatted down with a brutal tombstone piledriver. He's lying in a crater, bones are broken, and he's thinking, I'm lying perfectly still. If I move even a muscle, I'm toast. He leans heavily into the humor of literally playing dead during a raid wipe. Once the boss shifts its attention, Taiho reactivates his powers, flashes forward, and delivers a shocking, incredibly low-blow critical hit right to the monster's, well, most sensitive region. This hilarious and brutal tactic earns him the Skull Crusher saga and effectively wins the siege.
With the fortress captured, Taiho's fame explodes, drawing the attention of some very scary people. Welcome to Section 4, Training with a Legend. Here, the narrative shifts to Taiho's character development and a sudden, utterly terrifying mentorship.
Because despite his incredible growth, there is still a canyon-sized gap between Taiho's gamer stats and the unmatched mythic power of Ragnar Lodbrok, history's most legendary Viking. Ragnar literally shows up at Taiho's house, demands a fight, and proceeds to hand Taiho the most brutal, humiliating beatdown of his afterlife. He effortlessly dodges Taiho's ultimate attacks and swats him away like a fly. It really emphasizes the massive power gap Taiho still needs to cross if he wants to survive the true horrors of this world.
But Taiho isn't doing this alone. Like any good RPG player, he builds an eccentric, completely overpowered party. He recruits Hela, Idun's easily flustered Valkyrie, and Ciri, a fierce man-hunter. He's even got Rasgrid, the stoic ice princess, a majestic sea dragon he literally bullied into joining him, and of course, Ragnar himself, who decides to stick around as Taiho's terrifying mentor. As Taiho's fame in Valhalla grows, so does this incredible roster of allies.
With his training complete and his party assembled, we enter the story's climax. Section 5, Clash with the Fomorians. The hype is at an absolute maximum as our heroes face off against an ancient, formless evil that threatens to devour all of Valhalla. The battlefield is nothing short of apocalyptic. The sky is dark, the earth is shattered, and standing in the very center is the final boss, Volgard the Giant. This Fomorian nightmare is a towering behemoth with power that completely breaks the scale of standard combat. We're talking giant war axes, magical barriers, and devastating shockwaves. Taiho and his allies are pushed to the absolute brink, throwing their ultimate attacks just to scratch its armor. Now, what's really interesting here is how amidst all this chaos, Taiho completely breaks the rules of Norse mythology using his gamer saga. He parkours off falling boulders, dodging massive fist, and yells out, "Merlin, now's the time. Just keep the boss CC'd for 1 second." Because his in-game avatar was a legendary knight, Taiho is literally able to summon King Arthur's knights like Merlin and Lancelot into Valhalla to cast crowd control spells and nuke the giant's health bar. It's an insane crossover of mythologies driven entirely by his gaming achievements. This brings us to the epic final payout of this explainer. Section 6, Sword of the Sun. This is where Taiho's journey from a terrified, out-of-place gamer reaches its absolute peak. As Lancelot shatters the giant's guard, a final golden light gathers in the sky. It is a legendary drop. God literally drops Galahad's sword, Gallatin, straight from the heavens. Taiho catches the blade midair, and his sync rate with Kelsted maxes out completely. He unlocks the myth saga Sword of the Sun. Surging with blinding solar energy, Taiho closes the gap in a single frame and cleaves the colossal giant perfectly in two, sticking a superhero landing and securing his place as a literal godslayer. And that leaves us with a massively exciting thought. Taiho went from a gamer who died at his keyboard to the ultimate champion of Valhalla, bending the rules of the afterlife to his will. After conquering Norse mythology, the Death Knight returns. Okay, so to really understand Damien's epic redemption, we first have to talk about his absolute descent into darkness, because the sheer trauma this guy has been through is insane. Years ago, he was a disgraced, cowardly noble who basically brought nothing but shame to his family. But then tragedy hits hard. He gets captured by the evil arch-lich Dorgo, who uses dark magic to completely erase Damien's will, turning him into a monstrous, mind-controlled Death Knight. While he's trapped inside his own body, Damien is forced to slaughter countless innocents, and brutally. That includes his own beloved family. But fate is kind of funny. A tiny sliver of Damien's consciousness actually survives.
He eventually breaks free from the mind control, unleashes this devastating attack that absolutely obliterates the Archlich and reclaims his will. However, the guilt of killing his family is just too much to bear. So, with his revenge complete, he takes his own life. But death isn't the end here. Miraculously, his prayers are heard and he regresses, waking up in the past as a young man. The glow-up here is immediate. When Damien wakes up in the past, he's instantly confronted by his furious father, Paul, and his super-sweet sister, Louise. Now, in his past life, old Damien would have cowered, deflected the blame, and just made pathetic excuses for getting into trouble. But new Damien, he completely shocks his family. He just drops to his knees, sheds genuine tears of joy just to see them alive, and completely owns up to his disgraceful behavior. He takes full responsibility and vows to salvage the family name. His father is so incredibly stunned by this fearless, mature response, he actually wonders if Damien hit his head.
Section 2. Redeeming the family name. You know, talk is cheap, right? Well, Damien definitely knows it. To break the curse of ruining his family's future, he knows he has to take bold, immediate action. His first stop? The Black Snake Syndicate's pub, a place where he was previously humiliated and beaten. He casually walks in, simply demanding a sincere apology. But the thugs just laugh right in his face, and then they make the absolute fatal mistake of insulting his sister. Damien instantly snaps. Using his retained Death Knight battle instincts, he moves with literal sonic speed, effortlessly severing the thug's limbs. The pub owner starts panicking and calls in his heavy hitter, an apprentice knight named Ted. But Damien just effortlessly dismantles him. And how does he pull this off? By using his overpowered Death Knight ability to instantly copy his enemy's skills. It's a technique from his past life that lets him absorb and perfectly reflect attacks. Ted is left gravely wounded, and the terrified pub owner is forced to pay up a massive gold consolation prize. So Damien walks out rich, vindicated, and having sent a seriously brutal message.
Section 3. Shadows and Holy Knights. Now, you can't just dismantle a corrupt syndicate's local operation and expect them to send a thank you note. The Black Snake's leader, Cedric, doesn't just send random thugs, he hires a terrifying dark mage to assassinate our young hero. This dark mage sneaks into Damien's estate in the dead of night and unleashes a deadly, decomposing hellfire curse. We're talking about a green flame that supposedly cannot be extinguished. But the mage makes a massive miscalculation. As a former Death Knight, Damien retains this god-tier power called the Authority of Greed. This power doesn't just block dark magic, it completely absorbs it. Damien breezes right through the unquenchable hellfire like it's a light breeze, absorbing all the energy, and then slices the stunned dark mage clean in half with an ultimate soul-severing slash. But wait, it gets better. Damien doesn't just kill the mage. He literally plays 4D chess with the whole situation. First, he has his loyal, albeit totally terrified servant, Victor, deliver the dark mage's severed head and a ledger of corrupt dealings straight to the Holy Church. Second, Damien walks right up to the Black Snake headquarters, openly luring the leader Cedric and the corrupt city governor into an ambush. Third, because of Victor's little delivery, the muscle mommy paladin Agnes, a fiercely powerful warrior of the church, arrives right on time. She uses her divine authority to arrest Cedric and the corrupt governor, effectively wiping out the Black Snake Syndicate without Damien having to take even an ounce of the political blame. It is just a brilliant strategic play. So Paladin Agnes is absolutely amazed by Damien. I mean, think about it. He's a young noble who just exposed a dark magic ring and casually deflected fireballs with a sword. She enthusiastically offers him a highly prestigious spot as a paladin. But Damien? He humbly declines. He fakes being this super modest devotee who just wants to travel the world. Agnes is so deeply moved by his fake humility that she grants him exactly what he actually wanted all along: an incredibly rare advanced mana cultivation technique and a destructive new sword style. He manipulates the entire situation flawlessly just to secure his own massive power-up. Section 4. The Ultimate Duel. Now, despite all the epic combat and dark magic, Damien's true motivation in this new life really boils down to protecting his family, especially his sister, Louise. And that brings us to this incredibly punchable quote by Erwin Lionbloom. Erwin is this arrogant, sadistic noble from a vastly more powerful family. He actually uses Damien's past drunken mistakes at a banquet to blackmail the Haxon family. He essentially forces Louise into agreeing to a horrific, abusive marriage just to save her family's honor. In Damien's past life, he literally had to stand by and watch Erwin physically abuse and drag his sister by the hair, which obviously sparked a deep,
deeply rooted hatred for the guy. But this time around, Damien isn't going to sit back and let his sister become a sacrifice. So what does he do? Damien steps right in and challenges Erwin to an official duel. The terms are simple. If Damien wins, the marriage is off. Erwin, completely convinced Damien is still a weak loser, confidently accepts. And this entire encounter just brilliantly illustrates exactly how insanely overpowered Damien is now. He steps onto the battlefield and straight up refuses to draw a sword. Instead, he pulls out a literal dining fork. I mean, the absolute disrespect. Erwin unleashes his ultimate roaring lion sword technique, and Damien, using his newly boosted stamina and insane battle IQ, deflects every single strike, using kitchenware. With a quick flick of his wrist and his countless thunder shadow technique, Damien disarms Erwin and presses the fork right against the arrogant noble's neck, securing the win and saving his sister. It is the ultimate public humiliation.
Section 5. The Gold Pixie Debt.
Okay, so saving his sister? Absolutely incredible. But a massive financial crisis is threatening to ruin the family all over again. Damien finds out that his family owes an absolute fortune to the Gold Pixie Duke, and the loan sharks are knocking at the door. Damien doesn't have the cash, but you know what he does have? Pure audacity. He travels directly to the Duke and pitches a wild proposal. Let Damien represent the Gold Pixie family in an upcoming, high-stakes tournament against the rival Lionbloom family. If Damien wins, the debt is completely cleared.
The Duke is understandably pretty skeptical. But Damien, he just executes this plan flawlessly. First, he proves his absolute strength by easily defending against one of the Duke's top mid-class knights, officially earning his spot. Second, realizing it's a team tournament, Damien actually takes the time to train the Duke's underdog knights. He helps the short-haired knight named Pavle push way past his limits, which leads Pavle to score a miraculous, shocking victory in the tournament's second round. And finally, with the score totally tied up, Damien steps up to face the Lionbloom family's generational prodigy, Michael Lionbloom. The stage is set for a massive clash of titans.
Section 6. A hero's path forward. At this point in the story, the scope just blows wide open beyond local family feuds. Damien's ruthless efficiency is starting to make waves on a national scale. While traveling, Damien gets ambushed by even more dark mages who are operating in the shadows. But remember, he is a seasoned Death Knight. He effortlessly neutralizes the ambush in the forest, rescuing holy knights and uncovering a massive, sinister plot. Paladin Agnes arrives, witnesses the aftermath, and this completely solidifies her belief that Damien is an incredibly gifted warrior chosen by fate. Damien even manages to tame an undead spirit along the way, promising to help her achieve ascension. He's not just a noble anymore, guys. He is actively dismantling a terrifying dark magic network piece by piece, and the ease with which he does it is just awe-inspiring. His actions make such a massive wave that he actually gets summoned to the Imperial Palace to meet the Emperor himself. The Emperor is overwhelmed with this strange sense of gratitude. It's almost like his soul inherently recognizes Damien's sacrifices from the previous timeline. He delivers this super powerful quote, straight up refusing to let Damien bow, and offers him literally anything he desires from the treasury. Damien, always being practical, asks for rare elixirs and treasures to boost his physical body. He's doing this to ensure his mortal vessel can finally match the god-tier techniques he already retains in his mind.
So, that leaves us with a massive question to ponder. With an upgraded physical body, the official backing of the Emperor, and the Holy Church watching his back in absolute awe, who is the Death Knight going to face next? Damien knows the Archlich Dorgo is still out there somewhere, quietly building his undead legion in the shadows. The real war is honestly only
entirely around a concept called an idea. What is that? Well, it's basically a literal weapon formed from the essence of a person's soul. It determines your combat power, your societal rank, and honestly, your entire future. High rank? You are treated like a walking god. Low rank? You're trash. The school Jinsung attends is basically a military testing ground where your worth is judged purely by these ranks. And Jinsung? He's living as the ultimate punching bag. Low ranks like him are expected to just be a joke, even eating boogers for lunch. He's intentionally burying himself. But why?
Well, here is where the massive contrast comes in. On one hand, Jinsung actively projects this F-rank persona, armed with a completely useless, rusty dagger. His own squad leader literally calls him a human shield. But in reality, his idea is S-rank, the highest in existence, and its name, Absolute Assassin. It is pure, unadulterated killing intent.
Every single second of his waking life is spent desperately suppressing a suffocating, bloodthirsty aura so he doesn't just accidentally slaughter his classmates. He is true death itself, hiding right in plain sight.
Section 2. The Terrorist Attack.
Of course, you can only hide a secret that massive for so long, right? The stakes skyrocket during a routine school exercise at a local bank when it gets hijacked by the Pestilence Syndicate, a ruthless North Korean terrorist group known for leaving 0 survivors. They execute the guards, trap the students, and suddenly, playing the harmless F rank isn't an option anymore. So Jin-sung isolates one of the thugs in a bathroom and finally lets the gloves come off. The combat loop is wild. Step 1, his S-rank Ida lets him instantly read the enemy's stats and weak points. Step 2, he unleashes his absolute murder aura. To Jin-sung, an enemy moving at superhuman speed suddenly looks painfully, ridiculously slow. And Step 3, he executes them with terrifying, effortless precision. The thug is utterly dismantled by a kid he thought was just a helpless hostage.
But here's the thing, Jin-sung isn't just some edgy superhero. His power is born from severe, agonizing trauma. During this fight, his unhinged psyche bubbles up. We learn that when he was just a kid, his abusive uncle murdered his parents for money, beat him relentlessly, and eventually killed Jin-sung's only friend in the world, a stray dog named Poppy. That was the exact moment Jin-sung's soul shattered and awakened his S-rank power. He slaughtered his abusers, realizing with horror and this twisted joy that killing was actually becoming his favorite thing to do. That is the monster he's been desperately trying to keep locked away.
Section 3. The Jungle Boot Camp. After the bank incident is resolved, with Jin-sung secretly wiping out the terrorists and keeping his identity hidden, the school director ships the students off to a brutal military jungle boot camp. It's this guerrilla-style survival course meant to crush the weak. Because of his official F-ranked status, Jin-sung gets assigned to lead Team 300, the absolute lowest-ranked students. But he refuses to let them fail. He trains them relentlessly, pushing them way past their physical limits. Driven by his leadership, they earn the nickname the Zombie Squad, because they literally refuse to stay down. To the absolute shock of the elites and teachers, this group of F-rank losers starts dominating the survival drills, beating top-tier teams through sheer grit. Now, the corrupt school director is enraged that his precious elite students are getting upstaged, so he changes the final exam into a brutal, no-holds-barred battle royale. The entire school gangs up on the zombie squad, and Jin-sung, he finally decides he's had enough. To protect his team, he briefly lets the monster out. He doesn't kill anyone, but he unleashes that terrifying aura and dismantles the safety bracelets of over 200 top-tier students in a matter of seconds. He single-handedly breaks the entire school's hierarchy in the blink of an eye.
Section 4. The Global Apocalypse.
Just as Jin-sung is finally finding his place as a leader, the narrative totally pulls the rug out from under us. The school bullies, the corrupt directors, they suddenly don't matter anymore because the sky literally tears open. A global apocalypse kicks off, orchestrated by a cult leader calling himself Satan, wielding an inverted cross that turns the world into hell. To put the power scale into perspective here, it is absolutely ridiculous. Normal A-rank and S-rank heroes are getting swatted like flies by Satan's generals, known as the Beasts of Daniel. But Jin-sung, his power becomes entirely unmeasurable. When a massive apocalyptic dragon threatens to wipe out his allies, Jin-sung realizes holding back is no longer an option.
He's forced to make a terrifying choice. Rational Jin-sung wants to protect his friends and, hold on to his humanity. But to fight these apocalyptic dragons, he has to absorb pure killing intent and enter mad mode. He essentially risks permanently losing his mind to the violence just to match the power of these mythical beasts. It's a tragic paradox, really. To save humanity, he literally has to become the ultimate monster.
Section 5. The Final War. This internal and external conflict violently collides as Satan turns the city into a holy land of darkness. Millions of lives are hanging in the balance, and Jin-sung marches straight into enemy territory. During the fight, Satan hits Jin-sung with an attack called the Abyssal Seal, dissolving his physical body and trapping his mind in hell. He spends an agonizing 43,800 hours trapped in this mental abyss, forced to confront the darkest parts of his soul. But instead of breaking, he fights the god of his past, confronts his childhood trauma, and finally embraces every single version of himself, both the victim and the killer. He achieves true self-acceptance, returning to the real world with the ultimate authority of death.
When he gets back, the battlefield is absolute chaos. The scale of this clash is just staggering. You've got Satan's beasts of Daniel and demonic specters clashing with Jin Sung's fiercely loyal zombie squad and a literal US vampire general named Vladdy. But Jin Sung's ultimate trump card, he temporarily syncs 100% with a future version of himself, the absolute peak of his potential, to counter Satan's dark miracles.
Defeated in physical combat, Satan reveals a horrifying truth. Nearly 20 million souls are trapped in eternal torment within his Book of Daniel. Without hesitating, Jin Sung locks himself inside the book. Because time works totally differently in there, a single second in the real world is an eternity inside. Using a divine power called the Record Eraser, Jin Sung takes on the agonizing trauma of all 20 million people, wiping his own mind every 24 hours just to keep from going totally insane. He spends the equivalent of millions of years inside, saving every single soul one by one. When the book finally crumbles, Satan is completely broken by the sheer willpower of this boy. The war is won.
Which brings us to our final lingering thought. The story flashes forward 100 days. The world is recovering, and Jin Sung is living quietly. He's married to his high school sweetheart, Julia, and raising an adopted daughter. The F-rank loser who hid his murderous soul actually became the savior of humanity. But it leaves you wondering, after spending millions of years experiencing the collective trauma of humanity, can the ultimate weapon of death truly just settle down and find peace in a normal life?
Our main character, Ri, grew up entirely isolated. Her world was completely restricted by this unhinged, overprotective mother who refused to let her or her twin brother step foot outside, homeschooling them from birth. And the dynamic in Ri's home, it was honestly shocking. On one hand, you have Ri. She's naturally brilliant, self-taught in electronics, literally just from taking apart household appliances, and physically super sturdy. But her mother forced her to keep a short, choppy haircut because it was, quote, safer. Then, on the other hand, we have her twin brother, Rai. He was incredibly fragile. We're talking crying for hours over a bumped elbow. Yet, his mother treated him like an absolute prince, even letting him keep his hair long and adorable. Meanwhile, Ri was treated like a constant disappointment simply for being tough. Now, the sheer scale of Ri's hidden abilities is staggering. That number 17, that represents the exact moment Ri realized she had mutant-like strength. When they were just 8 years old, a doctor suggested their mother needed a psychiatric evaluation because she was so extremely overprotective of Rai. Well, the mother lunged at the doctor in a violent rage. To protect her brother, 8-year-old Ri simply closed her eyes and pushed her mom. When she opened them, she had launched her mother 17 feet across the hospital room. From that day on, she knew for sure she was undeniably, dangerously strong. So as their mother's paranoia escalated, eventually she was claiming the government was trying to torture them, Ri realized she just had to get out. The mother trapped them inside, living off government checks, refusing to even let them out on the balcony. So Ri engineered this brilliant master plan. First, she intentionally cut the house power to distract her mom. Then, she stole her twin brother's documents and secretly enrolled in an elite, out-of-state boys' boarding school that offered scholarships and cash prizes for electronics. Her plan? Disguise herself as Rai to finally win her freedom. And this instantly sets up massive, massive stakes for our protagonist. We've got a girl who has been completely isolated for 15 years, totally unused to social norms, walking into a chaotic boarding school entirely populated by teenage boys. She has to figure out how to navigate dorm life, dodge suspicions, hide her physical identity, and somehow excel in her classes without blowing her cover. It's a ticking time bomb. The very second Ri steps onto campus, disguised as Rai, she is immediately hit with the two extremes of boarding school life. See, she kind of thought this place would be full of quiet geeks, but instead it is just bursting with drama. And she quickly meets the key players who are really going to put her deception to the test. First up is the classic, arrogant, rich bully. And his self-introduction is perfectly ridiculous. His name is Bruce, but he calls himself Bruce No Truce. Yeah, really. He proudly announces that his family owns the school, he hates geniuses, he hates rats, and bizarrely warns everyone that his bite is poisonous. Well, when Ri points out that this is technically 4 things instead of the 3 he promised, Bruce immediately targets her. He physically yanks her up by the collar, which is a terrifying moment for Ri because her only concern right then is keeping her clothes in place so she isn't exposed. But right as Bruce is about to shove her against a locker, Ri gets saved by this quiet, nerdy guy named Adam who easily pulls Bruce off of her. Turns out, Adam is Ri's new roommate. Now, when Ri realizes she has to share a tiny dorm room with a guy, Absolute panic sets in about changing and hiding her secret. Adam notices her, tensing up. He steps close, puts his hands on her shoulders, and looks deeply into her eyes. The tension here is palpable. But instead of uncovering her secret, he casually diffuses her panic by deadpan dropping a single line, "There's a spider on your head." Of course, the interpersonal drama does not stop there. It escalates quickly. We soon learn that Bruce has a very chaotic, dramatic girlfriend named Jessica. Bruce basically treats the whole school like his personal kingdom, throwing these wild, frat-style parties in his massive luxury dorm room. And despite Rhee's absolute best efforts to lay low, she just keeps getting dragged directly into the center of their toxic relationship orbit. It all peaks during one of Bruce's chaotic dorm parties. Rhee gets completely overwhelmed by the crowd and hides in a bathroom stall. Suddenly, she hears a noise. Turns out Jessica is literally spying on her from the next stall over. When Rhee yells in shock, Jessica loses her balance and crashes to the floor. Rhee busts the door down and checks on her, accidentally showing off a bit of that super strength. But before they can even leave, Bruce walks in kissing another girl. When he catches Rhee and Jessica together, he assumes the absolute worst, scoffing, "Genius at school, rat in my bathroom. Nice combo." And this is where the story totally derails, but in the best way possible. Just to spite her cheating boyfriend, Jessica impulsively grabs Rhee's face and kisses her right in front of Bruce. I mean, giving our overpowered, sheltered protagonist her very first kiss ever, and it's with a girl who's just trying to make her boyfriend jealous. Rhee bolts out of the bathroom in an absolute panic, leaving the couple screaming at each other and sending the school's love triangle dynamics completely off the rails. Later on, we get this hilarious sequence that perfectly captures Rhee's lightning-fast reflexes. During a massive exam, Bruce is kicking Rhee's chair. When she finally turns around and tells him to stop, Bruce actually swings a punch at her. But Rhee dodges it with automatic superhuman speed. She's about to punch him right back when Adam grabs her from behind to stop the fight. Because of that, Rhee's fist flies sideways, and she accidentally punches Jessica right in the face. But instead of getting mad at Rhee, Jessica turns around and violently slaps Bruce for, quote, making him do it. It is pure cinematic chaos. But right after that, there's a heavy, emotional twist that changes how we see everything. Adam reveals to Rhee exactly why he puts up with Bruce's constant, cruel bullying. They aren't just classmates. They're actually half-brothers. Adam was born from their wealthy father's affair with a maid. So Bruce is the recognized, legitimate heir, while Adam feels like he was just a mistake. Adam desperately overworks himself, literally studying all night by the light of his phone, just hoping to earn even a shred of his father's love. And there's an even darker layer to this dynamic. Bruce constantly blackmails Adam with a devastating secret, basically forcing Adam to endure the bullying and obey his commands. Adam admits to Rhee that if this secret ever gets out, his father will never accept him and his future is totally ruined. So you realize the stakes for Adam are just as high as they are for Rhee. They're both hiding who they truly are just to survive. Everything starts converging on the National Electronics Competition. The top students get to build robots that perform household chores, and there is a massive $50,000 cash prize on the line. Rhee and Adam are pulling intense all-nighters, working on their separate projects. Rhee even steps in to help Adam fix a critical flaw in his circuit board, really proving that true friends elevate each other rather than tearing each other down. But everything reaches a breaking point on the actual morning of the competition. Bruce is furious that Adam spent the entire night studying instead of babysitting Jessica for him. So Bruce threatens to expose Adam's dark secret right then and there. The secret? Adam had stolen the final exam answers from the principal's office. When Adam refuses to bow down, Bruce pushes him way too far by calling him a pathetic, lying son of a maid. And that's it. That's the trigger. Adam finally snaps and punches his wealthy, abusive brother straight to the floor. The escalation from there is just rapid fire. I mean, after taking the punch, Bruce smiles like an absolute maniac and threatens to immediately march to the school and expose Adam's cheating, destroying his life forever. Adam just freezes, totally defeated. But it's 7:10 a.m. Rhee steps in. Using her super strength, she literally flips Bruce over her shoulder, slams him to the ground, and she and Adam tie both Bruce and Jessica up with rope. They tape their mouths shut and literally leave them on the dorm room floor so they can run to the competition. But, of course, the universe wasn't going to let them off that easy. During the competition, Adam gets up to present his chore-doing robot, which is designed to fold laundry.
At first, it works flawlessly. But then, a severe malfunction hits. The robot suddenly jerks forward, lunges directly at Ri, grabs her clothes, and violently rips her shirt off in front of the entire auditorium.
It's this massive, heart-stopping cliffhanger moment. Ri instantly curls in on herself, totally convinced her bra is exposed and her entire disguise is ruined. But in a flash, Adam is right there. He wraps a massive towel around her shoulders, completely shielding her from the crowd. And he leans in and whispers, "I got you, Reese." He already knew. He had suspected it for a while, and when she previously slipped up and mentioned her sister's name was Ri, he put it all together. He protected her secret when she needed it the absolute most.
So Ri goes back out, finishes the event in a borrowed hoodie, and actually wins first place. But just as she is giving her acceptance speech, the ultimate nightmare scenario plays out. Her unhinged mother bursts into the auditorium, looking frantic and exhausted, dragging her fragile twin Rai with her, and Rai is literally wrapped in protective plastic. Right in front of the judges, the teachers, and all the students, her mother points dead at her and screams, "You're not Rai, you're Ri, my daughter." The disguise is completely blown. The immediate fallout from this is pretty brutal. Ri is stripped of her prize money and expelled, sent right back to her toxic home. Meanwhile, Bruce manages to escape his ropes and exposes Adam's cheating to the principal. But in this really beautiful twist of fate, Adam decides to just come clean to his father about the stolen exam answers. And ironically, taking responsibility actually makes his father proud of his honesty. Adam is forgiven, while the malicious Bruce ends up failing his classes and is finally shipped off to a disciplinary school. Now, you might be thinking this is a tragic ending for Ri, but it's not. A few weeks later, Adam visits Ri at her suffocating house. He tells her how facing his fears and coming clean actually ended up saving him. He hands her his cell phone, empowering her to finally take control of her own life. Ri looks at the phone, takes a deep breath, and makes the call. "Hi, I want to report my mom." It is such a deeply satisfying conclusion to this incredible explainer on trauma, resilience, and overpowered justice. Ri spent her entire life hiding, first from her mother, then behind a male disguise at school. But
basically said he could use any method necessary, with one seriously chilling condition: just leave a body for the funeral. With that terrifying leverage, Derek drags Della out of her cozy bed and deep into a pitch-black forest. And this sets up a massive contrast in mindsets. On one side, you have Della's pampered noble etiquette, pure entitlement, zero survival skills. On the other side, Derek's ruthless survival-first mercenary approach. I mean, he literally starts launching fireball attacks at her in the dark. He pushes her right to the absolute brink of death. It's terrifying, sure, but it works. Pushed by raw, sheer survival instinct, Della finally does what she hasn't been able to do in 15 years. She manifests an ice barrier to save her own life. Derek literally forced her magical awakening through sheer trauma.
You see, Derek's unyielding philosophy is simple. He says, treat people with respect and you'll get respect back. Noble arrogance knows no limits. He doesn't give a single thought to bloodlines or wealth. He demands respect through capability and character alone. When Della's older brothers show up trying to intimidate him over these extreme methods, he shockingly stands his ground. He stares down the highest-ranking nobles in the region, totally unfazed, backed by the absolute authority granted by their own father. He proves right then and there that true power doesn't come from some fancy title. It comes from raw strength and the sheer will to use it.
Let's move to Section 2 and see how this builds. Origins of a Mage. It's a pretty tragic beginning, honestly.
Because you might be wondering, how did a poor commoner become this fearless and powerful in the first place? Well, Derek wasn't born into privilege. His journey was paved with tragedy and just a relentless grind. It all started 8 years ago when he learned the absolute basics of magic from a poor, arrogant old man in his village. Derek had this raw, abnormal talent, and he quickly figured out how to conjure weapons out of his own mana. But 4 years ago, tragedy struck. His master was beaten to death while trying to steal a 2-star magic book for him. That deeply traumatic moment awakened Derek's drive. It showed him exactly how unjust this world really is. Later on, he was taken in by a former noble turned mercenary named Katja Flameheart. She taught him 2-star spells and the harsh realities of noble paranoia. Jump to the present day, and Derek is this hardened mercenary, clearing out goblin dungeons with a terrifying, cold-blooded efficiency.
All right, Section 3, the first magic duel. This is a classic clash of the classes.
Back at the Duplain estate, Derek's wild teaching methods are put to the ultimate test.
Della's older brother, Reg, who is a skilled one-star mage, is absolutely furious about Derek being there. So he challenges his own sister to a highly publicized magic duel. His real goal? To humiliate Della and have her locked away for good, just to protect the family's reputation. Now, since Della is vastly outmatched in traditional magic combat, Derek drills a dirty, mercenary survival strategy right into her head. Abandon all noble honor, dominate the terrain, exploit every single distraction you can find. In the mercenary world, wars aren't won with polite little duels. They are won by killers who weaponize everything around them. Derek promises Della that if she fights like a mercenary, she can actually close the massive power gap between her and Reg.
And let me tell you, the climax of this duel is just adrenaline pumping. Rhea goes in expecting a straightforward, honorable fight, right? But Della hides beneath the smoke and dust, crouching low to the ground. Then, out of nowhere, dozens of ice spikes erupt directly from the arena floor right beneath Riag's feet. She goes after him relentlessly. She's throwing dirt in his eyes. She's kicking him in the chest. It's this completely vulgar, dirty display that leaves the noble crowd absolutely horrified. But guess what? It is incredibly effective. Della forces a draw through sheer grit and intuition, and in the process, earns her father's silent respect.
The Duke is so blown away by Derek's ability to tame and train his wild daughter that he hands him the ultimate reward. I'm talking about the holy grail for a commoner mage, unrestricted access to highly coveted 3-star magic grimoires. To put that into perspective, countless mages spend their entire lives just hoping to glimpse a 2-star book. And here is Derek, handed a literal treasure trove of 3-star knowledge directly from the Grand Duke's private library. It's a massive, game-changing leap forward for his own ambitions.
Moving right along to Section 4, Training the Rival. Let's talk about Alente's ambition.
Eventually, Derek leaves the Duplain estate to get back to his mercenary work. While hanging out at his usual mercenary tavern, he is tracked down by Alente. She's the second daughter of the Belmayard family, and she is desperate to defeat the reigning champion of high society, Adeline Duplain. The problem? Alente is completely crippled by a toxic inferiority complex. So, to shatter this, Derek unleashes an absolutely brutal regimen. Step 1. Cast magic until her mana is entirely drained. Step 2. Drag her into a live, deadly goblin dungeon. Step 3. Make her face actual death. When a goblin leaps directly at Alente in the pitch black, she has a choice: die paralyzed by fear or fight back. She taps into that fight-or-flight instinct, unleashes an ice spear, kills the monster, and takes her first major step towards shedding all that weakness.
Section 5. The Clash of Nobles. The huge showdown. Alente versus Eyeline.
So all of this grueling training leads up to an explosive showdown at Rosa Hall. The hype for this battle is off the charts. Everyone fully expects Aelin to win effortlessly, totally unaware of the absolute monster Derek has forged Alente into. And this brilliantly illustrates the starkly contrasting approaches they bring to the arena. Alente is running Derek's strategy of attrition, flooding the field with fire arrows, using high-level illusions to disorient, and fighting with raw gut survival instincts just to overcome her deep inferiority. Meanwhile, Aelin is defending her position at the absolute pinnacle of society, relying entirely on pure power and established, refined technique. But as Alente pushes the pace to absurd heights, Aelin realizes, wait, I cannot win using standard tactics. To counter Alente's terrifying, unpredictable growth, Aelin is actually forced to break her own limits right there mid-battle. In this highly cinematic moment, she draws all the surrounding mana into herself and unleashes a massive, blinding 2-star fireball. It literally looks like a miniature sun eclipsing the arena. Alente manages to dodge, pushing the fight to the absolute ragged edge, but ultimately, Aelin's raw, unbridled talent and composure manage to secure her the victory.
But here's the thing. Even though Alente loses the match, her true victory is her profound emotional growth. Breaking down in tears afterward, she confesses to Derek just how deeply insecure and pathetic she feels. And Derek? He tells her bluntly, if you lack the courage to accept that pathetic side of yourself, you will never be able to grow. For the first time in her life, Alente isn't chained to the crushing weight of her own jealousy. She stands tall, completely transformed by Derek's brutal yet undeniably effective mentorship.
Which brings us to the final act, Section 6, A Deadly Dark Prophecy. The fate of the entire realm.
By now, Derek's fame has reached a fever pitch. But instead of soaking it up, he actually rejects manipulative nobles like Denise, who just want to use him for political clout. Instead, he isolates himself in a desolate cave for some grueling, solitary magical training. And that extreme focus pays off massively.
By pushing his body to the absolute brink, Derek finally shatters the wall holding him back. He successfully unlocks the 3-star magic spell, Tectonic Shift. The sheer force of his mana literally rattles the entire cavern. But this massive breakthrough doesn't go unnoticed. It draws the attention of a living legend.
Enter Dresswolf Tail. This guy is a myth walking among mortals. He is the first ever 6-star commoner mage. He survived a literal war against the Empire after his family was murdered, taking out nobles with such ruthless efficiency that the Empire basically had to grant him a title just to stop the bloodshed. And because he's a 6-star mage, Dress possesses a pretty terrifying ability, clairvoyance. He can see the future, and he has tracked Derek down for one very specific, dire reason.
So the crucial point here is the terrifying prophecy Dress lays out for our protagonist. Dress has seen a future where Valerian Duplain, the heir to the Duplain family, embraces forbidden dark magic. A massive wave of necromancy is going to threaten the entire realm. But the most chilling part for Derek? In this upcoming catastrophe, Derek is fated to die. Dress tells him point blank that mediocre talent is now a death sentence. To survive the darkness that's coming, Derek's only route is to become infinitely stronger. There is no other way out.
And that leaves us on an incredible, adrenaline-pumping cliffhanger. Derek has defied the nobles, he's elevated commoners, and he's broken every single rule of magic society with his ruthless mercenary tactics. But now, he isn't just fighting arrogant aristocrats, he is fighting destiny itself. So what do you think? Can a commoner...
2. He tracks the vibrations of these monstrous duckling worms, hunting them relentlessly to farm points. And step 3, he tracks down the area boss, the massive mother worm, and single-handedly slaughters her with a precise jump strike right through the head. This effectively ends the tutorial hours early, which completely shocks the system's administrators.
Section 2. Breaking the system's rules. Because dominating monsters just wasn't going to be enough.
Kim very quickly sets his sights on asserting dominance over the system itself. The crucial takeaway here is Kim's absolute refusal to be a pawn in the gods' games. So, for killing the boss, a corrupt system lackey named Pygmy tries to force Kim into accepting a sponsorship from the Olympus faction. Kim flat out rejects it. Instead, he spends 1,000 of his hard-earned points to summon the tutorial administrator directly. He uses tutorial law to expose Pygmy's corruption. The administrator instantly executes the lackey, and as compensation, Kim essentially extorts an overpowered S-rank administrator class skill called Master of Mana.
By the time the 3rd tutorial rolls around, which is all about collecting monster essences, Kim turns into a ruthless capitalist. He completely monopolizes the monster drops by slaughtering thousands of creatures, and then he just sells the essences back to desperate, corrupt players for points. He racks up a staggering 167,400 points. To put that into perspective for you, a top-tier player at this stage might finish with like a few thousand.
Now, what is really fascinating is how Kim brilliantly breaks the game's expected progression rules here. He uses this massive wealth to open the point shop and basically buy endgame gear while he is still in the tutorial. For 50,000 points, he grabs a magic steel sword imbued with strong ice power. For around 20,000 points, a pyronancy cloak for ridiculous endgame fire resistance. Another 20,000 gets him ice crystals for a massive acceleration boost. The administrator is just left speechless, realizing Kim is gearing up for a threat that no tutorial participant should ever face.
Section 3. Slaying the Annihilation Demon.
This brings us to a massive turning point in the story. Deciding that Kim has completely broken the balance of the game, the system actually initiates a sector annihilation to just wipe the board clean. They introduce a true annihilation boss, the demon Sutruta. The environment Kim is suddenly thrust into is a terrifying 400 degrees Celsius blazing sea of fire. It's designed to literally melt everything in its path, and other players are instantly incinerated. The only reason Kim doesn't instantly burn to ash is precisely because of that endgame pyromancy cloak he literally just bought. Talk about foresight, right?
The boss, Sutruta, who is the 166th son of a giant fire demon, by the way, unleashes this devastating 3,000-degree sword strike. As Kim is being crushed under this immense heat, he remembers the legendary endurance of his past life ally, Sun Wukong. By enduring this completely impossible heat, Kim fulfills a secret condition. This evolves his basic monkey eye skill into a god-tier ability. Gray eyes. This broken skill lets him predict enemy strikes, sense the truth, and withstand absolutely impossible odds.
Armed with gray eyes and this ice-imbued sword, Kim completely overwhelms the fire demon. Surviving this ultimate strike and defeating an annihilation boss catapults his power scaling to heights you can barely imagine. I mean, he skyrockets straight to level 57, just skipping dozens of levels in a simple fight. On top of that, he claims a legendary elixir called the Giant's Heart, which radically alters his entire physical constitution.
All right, Section 4, Conquering the Martial Realm.
Let's move forward and see how this builds as Kim rapidly ascends the tower's floors. He reaches the 10th and 11th floors, stepping into the legendary martial realm to claim an ancient power. But to get it, he has to pass the Celestial Demon's impossible test. Step 1, he easily navigates a massive forest of illusions using his new gray eyes. Step 2, he's presented with this terrifying pink and black flame. Step 3, he actually steps into it. This fire contains the chaotic, corrupting energy of the outer gods. But Kim relies on his savage willpower, a mind forged from thousands of past life battles against these exact cosmic horrors. He doesn't just survive the fire, you guys, he conquers the sacred fire outright.
Next up is the Great Martial Arts Tournament, which really highlights a massive cultural clash on these floors. On one side, you have the decaying establishment. We're talking corrupt guilds and arrogant nobles, like Captain Hu from the Nangun clan, who completely rely on dirty tricks and sweet-talking to get ahead. But on the other side, you have the Vanguard. Kim Yuan teams out for the total powerhouse named Hargon, who happens to be the literal son of Zeus. Together, relying purely on raw, overwhelming power, they completely wreck the arena and absolutely crush the establishment's champions.
Just to satisfy that progression fantasy itch for a second, let's take a look at the god-tier arsenal Kim has assembled in such a crazy short chronological span. He's holding the S-rank Master of Mana skill, he's got the S-rank Sacred Fire, which, remember, rivals the power of outer gods, and he's even earned the B-rank title of Vice Lord of the Celestial Demonic Cult. His growth is so unprecedented that it leaves gods and top rankers entirely bewildered.
And that brings us to Section 5, the 20th floor cliffhanger. Following his total victory in the tournament, Kim prepares to step onto the 20th floor. This is an area teetering on the brink of an interstellar war between Asgardians, demons, and giants. But he needs one last power boost before stepping through. So he consumes a legendary item called the Great Scarlet Medicinal Sphere. It requires absolute, perfect focus to absorb. By flawlessly channeling this wild mana, Kim's arcane power hits exactly 100. In this universe, hitting the 100-point threshold in a core stat unlocks a game-changing ability. For Kim, it unlocks Sensory Field. This allows him to instantly detect every object and living thing within a massive radius around him.
The second Kim steps onto the 20th floor, his sensory field instantly detects corrupt players torturing giant children. Drawing his sword and moving faster than the eye can even see, he launches straight into the fray, setting the stage for a massive clash against the Asgardian factions. We leave off with this question. With the power of gods already in his—
Everything pivots on one visceral, terrifying memory. It's this sudden glimpse of a past life. In this second-chance regression vision, it's Logan's 23rd birthday. He's standing in the freezing rain, and Audrey Kingsley, the girl he loves, has just sent him a heartless text saying she's leaving to pick up another man. Utterly broken, Logan steps into the street, and out of nowhere, a speeding red car barrels toward him. But right before impact, someone pulls him back, and it's not Audrey, it's Serena Blackwood, his long-lost childhood friend, desperately trying to save him, crying out, "Happy birthday, Logan." That shocking memory literally jolts Logan awake in the present day, completely altering his entire worldview. This beautifully illustrates the massive crossroads Logan finds himself at. You've got Audrey Kingsley, the campus goddess. She's cold, arrogant, and totally accustomed to Logan being her personal doormat. And then there's Serena Blackwood. Sure, she's known as an ice-cold beauty to everyone else, but to Logan, she's incredibly warm, protective, and genuinely caring. Armed with the memory of that tragic past life, Logan sits in the cafeteria and makes a choice. When Serena offers him her food with a gentle smile, he actually accepts it. And when Audrey's toxic friends, particularly the spoiled Madison, start mocking Logan for not rushing to serve Audrey, well, something inside him finally snaps.
The cafeteria goes dead silent. Logan looks right at Audrey and her clique, and with absolute chilling calm delivers a fatal blow. I won't be hanging out with you guys anymore. The shock in the room is palpable. Madison's jaw literally drops. Audrey's eyes ice over, and she demands he come back, fully expecting her loyal puppy to just obey. But Logan? He doesn't even flinch. He just stays put. It is a huge, monumental shift in his character.
Section 2, Decision for a New Life.
You see, Logan doesn't just talk the talk here, he walks the walk. His steps to freedom are absolute. Step 1, delete Audrey's number. Step 2, block her and every single one of her toxic friends. And Step 3 happens in this beautifully cinematic moment. A sudden rainstorm hits the campus. Audrey watches from a distance, completely expecting Logan to come running over to shield her from the rain like he always does. Instead, she's forced to watch Logan share a single black umbrella with Serena. They walk away shoulder to shoulder, leaving Audrey fuming in pure denial, basically convincing herself that he's just playing hard to get.
Section 3, New Charm on the Court.
Okay, the energy in this next scene is absolutely triumphant. Logan is on the basketball court, playing like an absolute star. The crowd is going wild. Audrey is sitting up in the stands, arrogantly waiting for him to seek her approval. But Logan isn't even looking at Audrey. He's exchanging smiles with Serena. When the game ends with Logan sinking the winning shot, Audrey confidently steps forward to hand him a bottle of water, fully expecting him to graciously accept. Instead, Logan completely bypasses her arrogant attempt. He leaves her standing there with her pride deeply wounded and immediately searches the crowd for Serena.
And just as a fun, kind of mystical confirmation of this whole shift, back in the dorms, Logan's roommate Marcus decides to do a tarot reading. The cards reveal that Logan and Serena are an absolute match made in heaven, like destined to be together across their past, present, and even future lives. Meanwhile, a reading for Audrey predicted only disaster. It's such a brilliant narrative device because it totally validates Logan's awakening.
Section 4. Audrey's Breaking Pride.
So, Audrey goes through the textbook stages of denial during her birthday party at this luxurious KTV room. First, she convinces herself, oh, he's just playing hard to get. Then, when he still doesn't show up, she pivots to, he must be preparing a surprise birthday gift. But as midnight approaches, the panic starts to set in. She finally realizes she and everyone in her circle has been entirely blocked. The Ice Queen's persona really starts to crack here. Desperate, she orders her friends to call him from an unknown number. And where is Logan during this frantic panic? He's on an adorable bumper car date with Serena at an amusement park. So when Madison angrily calls the unknown number demanding to know why they're all blocked, it's Serena who casually answers the phone. Serena puts them right in their place over speakerphone for the entire KTV room to hear, and then just hangs up. The absolute power move by Serena here is incredible. It leaves Audrey's entire group in stunned, humiliated silence. But Audrey's delusion reaches its absolute peak right here. Desperate to maintain her pride, Audrey finds a cheap, scratchy $9.99 practice scarf in her bag that Logan had actually discarded a long time ago. She proudly wears it around campus, convincing herself and everyone else that it's a handmade token of Logan's undying love. But the reality? Logan spent his time hand-knitting a beautiful, high-quality white scarf exclusively for Serena. Audrey wearing the cheap discard perfectly symbolizes just how hollow her pride has actually become.
Section 5. Direct Rejection in Public.
So, picture this. The professor announces a group project. The whole class is watching. Audrey, desperate to reestablish her dominance and still clinging to the delusion of that cheap scarf, walks right up to Logan's desk in front of 100 students. With her usual icy, commanding tone, she makes her demand, pair up with me. She fully expects him to immediately agree, probably thinking he'd be grateful for the attention.
But Logan looks her dead in the eye and delivers a brutal, singular rejection that completely shatters her ego. I won't do it. When she pushes him, demanding to know why, he calmly states, to tell the truth, I kinda hate you now. Boom! It is a devastating blow. The words act like a physical strike. All her delusions, all her arrogance, instantly destroyed in front of the entire campus.
Audrey's icy persona just completely crumbles. Her face goes pale, her pride is in absolute ruins. And right on cue, Serena appears at the classroom door, smiling warmly at Logan. As Logan happily takes Serena's hand and walks away, Audrey actually screams after him, threatening that if he leaves, he can never come back. But Logan, he doesn't even look back. He walks out into the rain with Serena, totally unfazed, leaving Audrey completely broken and alone with her realization.
Section 6. Hot Spring and New Love.
You know, Serena is really not the type to play games. She rewards Logan's loyalty with genuine affection, making some incredibly bold moves along the way. She surprises him in the rain with his favorite coffee. She gifts him a rare, highly sought-after gaming console, literally just to see him smile. And then, over a simple dinner of fried rice, she looks at him and asks a question that changes the entire trajectory of their relationship.
She invites him to a brand new hot spring resort. Now, when Logan nervously hesitates, wondering if it's going to be a group trip, Serena leans in and drops this heart-pounding quote. "There won't be anyone else there, just you and me." It is an exclusive, highly intimate invitation that leaves Logan's roommates screaming in jealousy and leaves Logan himself completely flustered.
Seriously, try to wrap your head around that number for a second. This is how Kong completely broke the game system in his first life. When he was fighting this S-rank octopus boss that had already wiped out all the elite players, Kong didn't rely on his base stats. Why? Because his base stats were absolute trash. Instead, he relied on an absurd, game-breaking combination of over 200 skills. By stacking attack multipliers, using a restart skill to completely reset his cooldowns, squaring his damage, and finally activating a copy skill to hit twice, Kong delivers a mind-blowing 92 million damage in one single blow. He didn't just play the game, he completely dismantled its mathematical limits.
January 1st, 2020, the exact moment the world ends. So the crucial point here is what happens right after he uses that time reversal stone. King wakes up in his old bedroom. It's just mere minutes before midnight on New Year's Day, 2020, the exact moment the global monster invasion kicked off. Now most people, they would panic. Kang? He decides to use his last few minutes of peace to just calmly eat a slice of pizza. I mean, he spent years eating absolutely nothing but sweet potatoes and monster meat in the apocalypse, so he's just going to sit there and savor the crust while the sky literally tears open outside his window.
Which brings us to Section 2, A Second Chance, the Labyrinth. Exactly at midnight, the world ends. A system prompt pops up in the sky, offering humanity one single chance at survival. Enter the Labyrinth. It's this brutal, incredibly chaotic moment as monsters just start slaughtering people in the streets. But Kang is perfectly calm. He knows exactly how this system works, and this time around, armed with the knowledge of a ruined future, he is going to make very, very different choices.
The system forces everyone to choose a labyrinth difficulty: easy, normal, hard, or solo. Easy offers food and rest areas. Hard is a brutal, uphill struggle for survival. But solo mode? Solo mode is a lonely, agonizing death sentence where you are completely isolated from the rest of humanity, facing the most hostile environment imaginable. Naturally, Kang, who heavily regrets picking easy mode in his past life, locks in solo mode without even a second thought.
Section 3, Conquering Solo Mode by Breaking the Rules. Stepping right into this absolute death trap, Kang immediately flips the script. Instead of fleeing in terror like normal players do, he walks straight in, totally impressing the gatekeeper, and immediately hunts down this terrifying, blindingly fast giant rat, all just to earn the respect of a secret labyrinth merchant.
And this brings us to Kang's frankly insane grinding methods. See, the labyrinth rewards players who perform extreme actions with powerful skills. So Kang purposely lets a giant rat bite him repeatedly, draining his health to the absolute edge of death, just so he can block at the last possible microsecond. Why would he do that? To unlock Endure, which is a legendary passive skill that completely cancels a fatal blow. He even repeatedly drowns himself in a safe zone spring, forcing his own lungs to burst and pushing his body to the absolute brink over and over again. All of this just to unlock the Immortal Breath and buy a thread skills.
Just think about the stark contrast here. On one hand, you've got normal players hiding out in safe zones, absolutely terrified of every shadow, just praying to survive another day. And on the other hand, you have Kang, who is aggressively manipulating the system. He purposely forces near-death states, subjects himself to food poisoning by eating raw monster meat just to build up disease resistance, and actively seeks out lethal damage to stack overpowered abilities. He is quite literally min-maxing his own pain for ultimate power.
Section 4. Breaking the game system. Enzo's Test. Kang's relentless, crazy grinding catches the eye of a wandering NPC paladin named Enzo, who decides to test him with a devastating, wall-shattering punch. We are talking about a hit that would normally deal hundreds of thousands of damage to any player, but by using his insane skill stacking, shielding, deflecting, and triggering those near-death passives we talked about, Kang actually absorbs the lethal blow and survives, earning Enzo's deep respect.
And because Kang proved his worth, Enzo rewards him with a truly broken skill: weapon arts, hockey. Normally in the labyrinth, if you attack with a sword, only the sword's damage actually counts, right? But with this skill, Kang combines every single piece of gear he is wearing, his shield, his armor, his rings, into every single physical hit. He effectively turns his entire body into a lethal scaled weapon. Even a simple shoulder barge now hits with the combined force of all his highest level equipment. It's wild. So, how far would you go to unlock a skill called Reduced Pain? Armed with his new abilities, Kang tracks down this hidden trap room. The catch? This room fires lethal arrows if you step on the wrong pressure plates. Most sane players would just leave. Kang deliberately steps on the plates, triggering a massive barrage of arrows. He catches some, deflects others, and actually lets arrows pierce his arms, grinding right against his own bone just to unlock the continuously activated skill, Reduced Pain. Bleeding and completely battered, he claims the room's treasure, a ridiculously overpowered early-game fire staff.
Section 5. Defeating the Goblin Lord. An impossible battle. This ruthless drive leads directly to an early-game boss that is widely considered to be completely unbeatable in solo mode. The Goblin Lord sits on a throne, launching these devastating slicing waves of energy that can instantly decapitate a player. Kang is totally outmatched when it comes to raw stats, forced into a tight corner where one single mistake means permanent death.
Deflect, analyze, counterattack. Kang doesn't panic at all. Using literal esports-level precision, he perfectly reads the battlefield. He deflects the massive energy waves, he analyzes the boss's attack patterns, and he automatically counterattacks using his stacked passives. Even while getting knocked to the floor, barely holding on to his health points, Kang completely dismantles the boss's offense, ultimately destroying the throne and killing the Lord. This incredible feat earns him the powerful attack skill, drastically boosting his overall damage output.
The Sword of the Storm Severance is all that remains of my world. Along his journey, Kang meets the Ghost. This guy is an astral remnant of an emperor from a totally ruined world. Seriously impressed by Kang's ruthless efficiency and willpower, the Ghost passes down his ultimate technique, the Imperial Sword Art. It's a technique focused entirely on overwhelming, unblockable offense. There is zero defense in this style. The best defense is simply striking the enemy's weapon with so much sheer power that you overwhelm them completely.
Section 6. Saving the Demon Princess. Things take a really wild turn here. Kang accepts a side quest from a blacksmith that actually teleports him through a portal to a completely different ruined world just to farm materials. While he's there, through a crazy twist of fate and a very specific set of labyrinth mechanics, he accidentally ends up guarding Anisha. She is the last surviving demon princess of a world where demons have been hunted to near extinction by a fanatic religious order.
So this elite squad of mages tracks the princess down, totally expecting an easy kill. Boy, do they severely underestimate her new bodyguard. Kang, deciding he wants to test out a brand new magical skill he acquired, just casually summons the Ice Orb. It's this massive, floating sphere packed with countless frozen shards. With a flick of his wrist, he hurls the orb right into the mage squad, unleashing a dragon-level area of effect annihilation that freezes and shatters the entire elite unit in mere seconds. But honestly, the mages were just a warm-up. Next, a squad of red-haired master swordsmen arrive, literally glowing with powerful aura. They think they have the upper hand, but they're about to experience a harsh reality check with Kang's power. As the strongest swordsman unleashes his ultimate, aura-infused strike, Kang simply stands there. His complete nullification passive absorbs the hit entirely, reducing the damage to 0. Before the swordsman can even process the total impossibility of what just happened, Kang moves with blinding speed and effortlessly beats him down. After successfully protecting the princess and escorting her to a hidden dragon sanctuary, Kang gets hit with a massive lore drop from a demon goddess. She reveals the true endgame threat here, the ancient gods. These guys aren't just big monsters in a tower. These are transcendent cosmic beings who have systematically wiped out 258 different planets in just 12 years. They are the exact ones who orchestrated the apocalypse on Earth, treating the complete destruction of humanity as nothing more than a twisted, sick game. Which leaves us with a truly staggering thought to end this explainer. Think about it. Kang has successfully broken the labyrinth solo mode, hoarding these impossible skills, stacking ridiculously overpowered gear, and turning his very body into a lethal weapon. He has all the knowledge of his past life and a deep thirst for vengeance. But with 200...
He's still the absolute ruler of hell, right? Peak physique, unmatched magic, the whole shebang. But in reality, his body has been in a coma for 10 Earth years. He's frail, he's wheelchair-bound, and physically he's completely useless. And to make things infinitely worse, predatory loan sharks show up and literally start beating his mother over unpaid medical debts right in front of his eyes. Seeing her suffer like that ignites this world-ending rage inside him, and suddenly a new system window triggers, offering a desperate quest to regain just a fraction of his lost power.
Now, any normal person might give up, but Daisung finds this absolute 200 IQ loophole. The quest says he has to reach a target 10 meters away within an hour to get a recovery elixir. He tries to crawl, but his body is just too weak. But here's the catch. The system only cares that he reaches the destination, not how he gets there. So with agonizing effort, he drags his frail body into that wheelchair and rolls himself to the target, beating the quest in the absolute final seconds. He downs the elixir, regains just enough magic to vanish into thin air, and completely evades those thugs.
Which brings us to Section 3, Reclaiming the Demon's Power.
Knowing full well that Earth has changed and those thugs are definitely coming back, Daisung enters this dimensional space called the Pantheon system. His goal? Rapid-fire grind his way back to 100% power. He straight up sets the difficulty to Hell tier and faces an exact, full-strength replica of himself as the Demon Lord. Since he's vastly overpowered by his own former strength, he desperately activates blood neutralization. It's this super rare skill that lets him completely ignore incoming damage for a short time. He uses this tiny window of invulnerability to literally chug stamina potions mid-fight, completely turning the tables on his overconfident clone.
And by outsmarting his clone, he snatches a last-second victory and hits that coveted 100% implementation rate. Boom! His frail human body is instantly restored to the massive, god-tier, battle-scarred physique of the Demon King. With his power fully returned, he heads straight back to Earth, tracks down the mob boss who dared to threaten his family, and brutally dismantles the entire gang single-handedly. He leaves 0 witnesses and secures absolute safety for his mother and sister. It is so incredibly satisfying.
All right, Section 4, Breaking the Hunter Exams.
Now that his family is safe, Daisung has to face Earth's wild new reality. While he was in that coma, gates started opening worldwide, and awakened hunters emerged to fight the monsters pouring out of them. Daisung sees this as a super lucrative career to support his family, so he goes to take the official hunter exam. To measure a hunter's magic, they use these crystal spheres. Well, when Daisung simply touches the first one, it shimmers with every color of the rainbow, and then it just violently explodes. The examiners think it's just a malfunction, right? So they bring out 2 backup spheres. He shatters those instantly, too. The association's devices literally cannot measure his overwhelming power, forcing them to just sweat it out and award him a borderline S rank right on the spot.
But, that kind of flashy attention brings enemies. As he's leaving the testing center, he senses an assassin aiming a sniper rifle at him from way off in the distance. And this is where he cements that absolute ruler persona. Instead of ducking, he looks directly at her through her own scope, points to his head, and casually mouths, "Take the shot." When she fires this massive aura-infused bullet, it completely fails to even scratch his defenses. Before she can even think about running away, he teleports right behind her, demanding to know who sent her. It is just a cinematic display of absolute dominance.
Realizing that Earth actually has these hidden, organized threats, Daisung decides he needs some better gear. So he drops back into the Pantheon system and gets a quest to slaughter exactly 1,000 celestial armored wolves. Now, does he fight them one by one like a normal hunter? Nope. He flies high into the sky and crashes back down like a blazing golden comet, totally obliterating all 1,000 monsters in a single earth-shattering shockwave, literally one-shotting an entire army.
This insane feat lets him unlock his ultimate weapon, the Hellfire Greatsword. But to actually claim it, he has to pass one final trial, which means facing off against a massive guardian serpent. Now, the system wants him to answer the serpent's riddles to pass, but Daisung, he doesn't do quizzes. Instead, he hilariously just lets the giant snake swallow him whole just so he can summon his brand new blazing blue greatsword and slice the beast cleanly in half from the inside out.
Next up, Section 5, Conquering the Celestial Realm. At this point in the story, the stakes suddenly skyrocket. Daisung's power is so unbelievably vast that he completely bypasses normal Earth monsters. If we trace the threat hierarchy here, Earth monsters are basically a joke to him. He handles them with bare-handed decapitations. Elite human hunters? They're merely a medium threat he easily deals with using intimidation and shadow summons. The real conflict begins when he goes up against god-tier celestial deities who basically view humanity as an anomaly that needs to be erased. And Daisung's response to literal gods? Unleashing domain expansions that turn the battlefield into his own personal hell, resulting in the complete annihilation of these divine forces.
But here is where things get truly wild. Daisung finally reveals his ultimate overpowered cheat code, Save Point. This absolute game changer of an ability allows him to rewind time to a fixed point at will. So, when he finally faces off against a supreme celestial entity, the actual creator, he uses this skill not just to survive the fight, but to actively annoy the deity. He just endlessly respawns every single time he is killed. It is the absolute highest level of disrespect to a god. And this leads to a hilariously tense confrontation. The omnipotent creator of the universe completely loses its mind. It pulls Daisung into a cosmic dimension, furiously demanding to know how a puny human is manipulating time. And Daisung, acting incredibly smug, flat out refuses to tell him. This actually causes the supposedly enlightened creator to throw a literal tantrum, screaming and threatening to dismantle and in his previous life's tutorial. It's a total game changer.
Which brings us to Section 1, Dominating the Brutal Tutorial. So while all the other survivors are panicking, fighting over the shrinking safe zone on the surface, and getting bullied by some pathetic dictator wannabe, Charlie just bails. He completely abandons them. He drops down into the dark subway tunnels and starts hunting these massive underground duckling worms, tracking them purely by their vibrations. This underground grind is insanely efficient. It skyrockets him straight to level 20 and unlocks a core stat called Arcane Power, starting him off at a massive 18 points. Normal players, it would take them months of grinding to hit that number.
Deep down in that dungeon, Charlie pulls off the impossible and slaughters the second tutorial's hidden boss, the Mother Worm. Suddenly, an administrator's lackey pops up, this creepy, bloody clown who is absolutely stunned that a human killed the core of the tutorial. The lackey tries to shortchange Charlie, offering him this super shady, direct sponsorship with Olympus instead of his actual loot. Charlie isn't having it. He stares the clown dead in the eye and demands his rightful reward.
Actually, scratch that. He goes a step further. Charlie drops 1,000 of his hard-earned points to summon the true tower administrator, exposing the clown as a corrupt plant bought off by Olympus. The giant administrator is furious at this interference and literally executes his own lackey right then and there. And for pulling this off and exposing the corruption, the admin rewards Charlie with Master of Mana. This is an insanely overpowered S-rank skill that governs mana control, capacity, and resistance.
Okay, moving into the third tutorial phase. The system demands players collect 50 survival essences to live. Using his brand new mana control to cast these devastating mana explosions, Charlie massacres monsters and monopolizes hundreds of these essences. He literally draws a line in the dirt and tells the other players 100 points per essence. Naturally, a 50-man gang led by a local bully tries to cross that line to rob him. Big mistake. Charlie ruthlessly slaughters the entire gang in the blink of an eye.
Selling the essences to the terrified remaining players, Charlie walks away with an unbelievable 167,400 points. That kind of staggering wealth lets him buy actual endgame gear right there, from the shop, while still inside the tutorial.
Which sets the stage for Section 2, the Annihilation Boss Battle. So the timer hits 0, the tutorial officially registers as a failure, and a true nightmare drops into the sector. The sky turns blood red as Shrutra arrives. This guy's the 166th son of the giant fire elemental SR. He's a towering demon that generates an apocalyptic heat wave, eventually hitting 15,000 degrees Celsius. That's as hot as the surface of the sun, designed to instantly melt and wipe out any players unlucky enough to still be alive.
Faced with these literally impossible odds, Charlie doesn't even sweat. Well, maybe physically he does, but mentally he is locked in. He counters Shrutra's demonic flames and explosive skull minions using that endgame gear he bought, specifically a pyromancy cloak, multiple ice crystals, and a sword of air steel. Pushing his brain and body to the absolute breaking point, his hyper-accelerated thinking causes his visual skills to evolve mid-fight into the gray eyes. This lets him perfectly predict the demon's attacks, allowing him to solo a boss that usually requires an entire army to bring down.
And the loot for doing the impossible? It's legendary. Those evolved gray eyes let him see the truth of the world and predict enemy attacks. He also bags the giant's heart, an elixir practically overflowing with massive mana. But you know, true power comes at a cost. He has to endure pure, agonizing pain to absorb it, but doing so unlocks the giantification skill. He's establishing a terrifying new baseline of power, and he hasn't even officially entered the tower yet.
All right, Section 3,
Defying the gods of Olympus.
As you can guess, climbing the tower this fast puts a massive target on your back. Inside the Martial Realms Coliseum, Charlie matches the historic Round 19 record, a record set by the legendary Sun Wukong himself. The system literally gives him an out, asking if he wants to stop, but Charlie fearlessly ignores the warnings. With the timer counting down to kick him out, he just firmly says challenge and pushes right into the deadly Round 20 that absolutely no one has ever cleared.
This blatant defiance causes Olympus to strike back hard. Charlie gets ambushed by Agamemnon's forces on day 1. But in a stunning display of sheer endurance, Charlie holds the line, taking the full, devastating brunt of a cruel sun attack. Why? To protect the rebellious, legendary blacksmith Hephaestus. He takes the hit to ensure the old man survives, securing him as his most vital ally and future weapons forger.
Now for Section 4, the Celestial Demons Test.
Look, to fight gods, you need power that rivals them, right? Charlie undergoes this absolutely harrowing mental and physical trial administered by the enigmatic celestial demon. He's tested against a volatile, terrifying flame that perfectly mirrors the cosmic horrors of the outer gods. By using his sheer force of will, a will forged from thousands of past life battles and the deep psychological trauma of watching everyone die, Charlie absolutely dominates the flame. He claims the S-rank Sacred Fire, which actually grows by feeding on the fear of his enemies, and he earns the prestigious title of Vice Lord.
And of course, he doesn't stop there. By constantly pushing his limits in combat, Charlie hits the massive milestone of triple-digit arcane power, 100 points. This unlocks the sensory field, giving him a 50-meter detection domain. You combine that with his gray eyes and battle prediction, Charlie becomes practically untouchable on the battlefield. It's like he has a cheat code for reality.
Let's look at Section 5, Forging the Path Ahead.
All this rapid, insane growth brings the narrative to a boiling point. We get an explosive confrontation with Theseus, the incredibly arrogant son of Poseidon, over a priceless artifact. Theseus comes in hot with full Olympian pride, wielding Poseidon's trident and some crazy high-level water manipulation. But Charlie just counters him with a sacred fire, relentless battle prediction, and absolute cold combat focus. It turns into this high-speed, brutal duel where Charlie pushes his new abilities to the absolute physical limit, ultimately crushing the Olympian successor.
Winning that grueling battle expands his arsenal even further. He grabs the legendary Sea Stone from Theseus and immediately hits up Hephaestus for a custom weapon refinement. The guy literally never takes a day off. On top of that, he's carrying this mysterious egg in his inventory. An egg that casually devoured the massive corpse of a boss monster earlier. It leaves us hanging on this massive cliffhanger. Is Charlie incubating a world-ending threat or his greatest future ally?
Which brings us to the ultimate question. Carrying the crushing weight of the millions of souls who died in his past life, Charlie is fighting a one-man war against time, corrupt gods, and outer cosmic horrors. He's weaponizing the very system that was meant to destroy humanity. So how far will this overpowered
Effortlessly block a general's attack, the Beast King steps in, and get this, the king actually bows to this human. He declares that the hammer has chosen Tsuyoshi as their prophesied leader. But there's a catch. He gives him a strict one-year deadline to grow strong enough to actually take the throne.
But wait, here is the craziest twist. When Tsuyoshi uses the ring to travel back home, he realizes time was completely frozen on Earth while he was in the Beast World. And all his new stats, his cross-world inventory, they carry over perfectly. So the next day, he goes to retake his Hero Awakening test. Keep in mind, before this, he was a total laughingstock. Now, he activates his new ultimate physique skill and hits a combat power of 5,400. That insane number completely shatters a 30-year record for a level 3 hero. And just for fun, he pulls out the Divine Hammer for a single second, and it literally causes a blackout-inducing earthquake across the facility.
So now, our guy is juggling a brutal dual life, constantly bouncing between two entirely different ecosystems of danger. Over on Earth, he's dealing with the ruthless Blue Snake Gang. These are scumbag loan sharks who are actively harassing his paralyzed sister over a massive debt. Meanwhile, in the Beast World, he's facing down monstrous bosses possessed by this terrifying, corrupting force they call the Darkness. But thankfully, he's not flying solo in the Beast World. He teams up with Sakura, a badass level 72 half-beast, half-human companion that he actually saved from execution, and together, they start power leveling like crazy.
To protect Karina and actually hit that one-year deadline set by the Beast King, Tsuyoshi exploits the system with an incredibly relentless grind. He absolutely has to hit level 6 just to get his foot in the door of the Beastmen Combat Academy. So he just goes into complete overdrive. He hunts down these rare Fox Beastmen, totally monopolizing all the experience points. He takes down the level 7 Dark Fox boss to claim a super rare freezing sword. And then he uses reset scrolls to wipe the cave and defeat that same boss 6 more times in a single day. Talk about an insane grind, right? Driven by pure desperation, he pushes his stamina to the absolute limit, leveling up twice from dawn to dusk.
This manhwa-style grind gets him into the Combat Academy, but actually claiming a new skill requires passing a really brutal physical trial. Naturally, Tsuyoshi shatters a rare outer stone slab with a single punch, using only 50% of his power by the way, and bends an iron bar like it's a pipe cleaner. He totally dominates. Inside the skill vault, he's only given 3 minutes to pick a scroll, but they are all locked behind high-level magical seals. His solution? Absolutely wild. He summons the Divine King's Hammer for 1 second, slams it into the ground, and violently shatters every single magical seal in the room at once. With literally seconds to spare, he grabs Thunder Chain. It's a fragmented, forbidden lightning skill that historically caused its users to literally explode from the sheer backlash, but thanks to Tsuyoshi's ultimate physique, it's a perfect match.
Armed with this forbidden skill, Tsuyoshi makes a brutal grand return to the real world. He teleports right into the middle of an ambush set up by a corrupt hero trainer named Gaia and his squad of mages. Tsuyoshi just pulls out his new freezing sword, activates Thunder Chain, and literally calls down lightning from the sky. He effortlessly wipes out his ambushers, taking exactly 0 damage from their explosives. And the very next day at school, when some bullies target his sister and push her down the stairs, well, the underdog snaps. He breaks the main bully's fingers, throws a literal lightning bolt at him, and ends up terrifying the local gang bosses, including that Blue Snake gang, so badly that they completely void his dead and start begging to be his friend.
Okay, switching gears back to the Beast World. Tsuyoshi decides to solo a massively dangerous level 14 carnivorous darkness slime to claim an ultra-rare item called Cardiolus. Even Sakura at level 72 warns him that going in alone is basically suicide. But Tsuyoshi's tactical breakdown is just flawless. He knows the boss is weak to thunder. So, step 1, he enhances his arms with ultimate physique so his own body doesn't explode from the energy. Step 2, he boosts his Thunder Chain skill using his Heaven Shaker ability. And step 3, he summons the Divine King's Hammer at the very last microsecond, pouring all that combined, crazy energy into a single devastating strike that completely obliterates the massive slime in one hit.
And you better believe this dominance spills right back over onto Earth during a massive hero tournament. Tsuyoshi doesn't just win his fights, he actually breaks the testing machines. He scores beyond the maximum limit of 100 with just a flick of his finger. During the potion-making round, he easily scores a perfect 100 on ingredient selection. But here is the truly crazy part. Refining an S-grade potion actually summons an A-grade supernatural lightning punishment down from the sky. While all the other so-called geniuses are panicking, Tsuyoshi casually pulls out the Divine Hammer, absorbs the entire lightning tribulation, flawlessly crafts the S-grade potion, and walks away with a 1 billion yen prize. That's nearly $7 million US. Finally, it's enough to buy his sister a safe, luxury apartment.
As his stats go through the roof, the actual lore of this universe gets way deeper. Tsuyoshi encounters a consciousness in a mysterious void, a man named Dignity, who was actually the previous owner of the Boundless Ring before dying 300 years ago. Dignity drops a massive lore bomb. He reveals the true origin of the darkness, explaining that it's actually a parasitism leaking in from another dimension through the caves. To truly stop it, Tsuyoshi has to fulfill a destiny to gather and fuse the 3 great treasures. He obviously already has the hammer, but now he needs to track down the sacred sword of the bright moon and the star-shaped ring staff.
Dignity then hands over a legendary skill called Heaven Opening. And guys, this is a strike so powerful it can literally shatter space and time. With his system now fully upgraded to 100%, which unlocks massive new multipliers for all his stats, Tsuyoshi puts this new power to the test. He decides to help Sakura get her revenge on the corrupt forces that killed her father. Standing on a mountain overlooking the enemy fortress, Tsuyoshi raises his axe to the sky, gathers an absolutely terrifying amount of energy, and unleashes a massive, catastrophic lightning storm that utterly levels the stronghold. I mean, he is operating on an entirely different scale now.
But, true stakes aren't always about giant lightning storms and blowing up fortresses. Sometimes they are deeply personal. Back on Earth, Tsuyoshi goes to an exclusive underground auction. His goal, buy a miraculous S-rank healing elixir that can finally fix Karina's legs. Right before the auctioneer's hammer falls, a new bid echoes through the room. 3 billion yen. That is roughly $20 million. The bidder is Lord Scorsese, the arrogant, infinitely wealthy son of two legendary S-rank adventurers. In just one breath, Tsuyoshi's hope of saving his sister is completely crushed by a guy who views $20 million as literal pocket change.
This part is just heartbreaking. Out of pure desperation, Tsuyoshi intercepts Lord Scorsese outside the auction and offers to do absolutely anything in exchange for the elixir. Scorsese just smirks and gives his condition. Kneel down, touch your head to the dirty ground, and beg like a dog in front of everyone. Swallowing every single ounce of his pride, our overpowered hero gets on his hands and knees and begs. And what does Scorsese do? He bursts out laughing. He reveals he never ever planned to give it to Tsuyoshi. He only bought the priceless S-rank elixir because his pet bulldog injured its leg falling down some stairs.
Yeah, you can probably guess what happens next. That is the exact moment our underdog completely snaps. The humiliation, the blatant, disgusting disrespect for his sister's suffering, it all boils over into pure, uncontrollable fury. Later that night, as Lord Scorsese is just casually sipping champagne in his limousine on the outskirts of Tokyo, the sky suddenly lights up. Tsuyoshi descends from the night sky wielding the Divine King's hammer, launching a cataclysmic aerial assault directly onto the Lord's motorcade. All restraint is completely 100% gone.
But here is the terrifying reality check. Scorsese's family isn't just insanely wealthy. They are the absolute apex of power in this world. His parents, those two legendary S-rank adventurers, arrive on the scene to exact brutal retaliation. The resulting clash literally shatters the windows of nearby buildings and kicks up massive craters in the street. Despite pushing his ultimate physique and his newly upgraded system to their absolute limits, Tsuyoshi is heavily outmatched. He takes catastrophic damage, sustaining a massive lethal cut to his body. For the first time since this whole journey began, our overpowered hero is staring death right in the face, completely overwhelmed by the sheer, terrifying strength of true S-rank veterans.
So, as his life points literally plummet to zero and his vision starts going dark, his only thought is the fear of failing his sister. Suddenly, the magic ring emits a blinding light. It overrides all the normal cooldowns and initiates a desperate emergency special transport. The scene shifts abruptly back to a...
Look at the sheer audacity of these demands. Number one, they'll invest, sure, but they want to steal 50% of all remaining Lin family assets. Number two, Lin Fang must marry Lu Yuan within one single month. 3, he has to become a subservient live-in son-in-law, prioritizing the Lu family above absolutely everything else. And 4, the real kicker here, he is strictly forbidden from ever working or starting a business again. His only job would be to stay at home and serve his in-laws full-time. It's a completely calculated, venomous move designed to strip Lin Fang of his dignity and turn him into a literal stay-at-home prisoner.
But here's where it gets good. Lin Feng doesn't beg, he doesn't shout. In the ultimate face-slap moment, he calmly drops an absolute bombshell. He just says, "I am here to break the engagement." Boom. He pulls out this meticulously detailed canvas bag containing a ledger of every single gift and expense from their half-year engagement. He hasn't touched the gifts, and get this, he even converted consumable items like flowers into cash, transferring it directly back to Lu Ruan's card. Citing their new gap in social standing, he packs up his ledger and simply walks away, leaving the Lu family in absolute speechless shock.
Moving on to Section 2, Breaking Family Ties. So back at his own mansion, the fallout is just devastating. And man, the contrast between the two brothers here is staggering. You've got Lin Feng, who remains totally calm and principled. He points out that they aren't actually in debt. They just have to live like normal people now and rebuild from scratch. But his older brother, Lin Hao, he is blinded by greed. He actually wanted to use Lin Feng as a bargaining chip, a marriage alliance just to secure a corporate bailout from the Lu family. When Lin Feng refuses to be sold off like that, his own flesh and blood ruthlessly kicks him out into the streets, stripping him of all financial support and telling him to take his loyal maid Xiao Wei and just leave. Which brings us to Section 3. Enter the Shadow Queen. Okay, with Lin Feng literally on the streets, the board is officially set for the real mastermind of this story, Qin Mangyao. She is the incredibly secretive, ultra-powerful head of the Tianyu Group, operating at the very top of the social pyramid in Nanchang. But what almost nobody knows is that she is actually an old high school classmate of Lin Feng from 7 years ago. The plot thickens big time when a rival tries to smear her by sending Lu Ruyan a fake audio recording of a woman claiming to be Qin Mengyao, supposedly offering 10 billion to buy Lin Feng's love. But instead of ruining her, this fake audio actually gives the real Qin Mengyao the perfect excuse to finally reconnect with Lin Feng on social media after 7 long years.
And this leads to an absolute boss move. To put this in perspective, Lin Hao, the greedy older brother, tries to force Lin Feng into deeper poverty by selling the family villa at an absurdly inflated price to make him come crawling back. He lists it for 140 million yuan. That's a ridiculous amount of money. And who buys it instantly? A secretive tech shell company. And yep, you guessed it, that company is secretly owned by Qin Mengyao. She steps in to buy his family home at a massive premium just to protect his legacy while he regroups.
Let's jump into Section 4, the hotel scandal. Talk about sheer hypocrisy, right? For 7 years, Lu Ruyan obsessively chased Lin Feng, acting like the most devoted partner ever. But the week he actually goes bankrupt, total silence, just to play power games. Then, devastated by his rejection, she goes out, gets drunk at a bar, and her male secretary takes her to a hotel. By 5 a.m., a scandalous photograph of the two of them is plastered on the front page of every single newspaper in the city. Her supposed 7-year devotion literally crumbles into a massive public relations nightmare in just one night.
Next up, Section 5, the public breakup.
With Lu Ruyan's reputation basically in freefall, Lin Feng sees his opening and, guys, he executes an absolute masterclass in PR. He doesn't yell, he doesn't act like a bitter, jealous ex. Instead, he creates a brand new social media account under his real name. He calmly posts that the engagement was broken off in front of their elders, and all gifts were returned. He clarifies there is no bad blood, maintaining the absolute moral high ground, and even politely wishes her a better future, tagging her account. It's genius because he completely controls the narrative without ever sounding vindictive, and the internet eats it up. The post goes viral instantly, hitting 1 million followers in just half an hour.
And that kicks off Section 6, the desperate hunt.
So now, absolute chaos breaks out as multiple factions realize they have completely lost their grip on Lin Feng. First up, the Liu family. Desperate to fix their PR nightmare and win Lin Feng back, the father finally agrees to help the bankrupt Lin family by doubling the dowry. But their greed just has no limits, honestly. Behind the scenes, they secretly demand 50% of the Lin family shares in exchange for their help. They are frantically scrambling to track Lin Feng down at every single 5-star and 4-star hotel in the city to force this deal through. Then, a dangerous new threat enters the fray. Enter Yang Na. She's the daughter of a terrifyingly powerful official, and her family's power actually exceeds the Liu family's. She has a pretty notorious reputation, but upon seeing the public breakup, she decides she wants the handsome Lin Feng all for herself. She even pays a visit to Lin Feng's older brother to propose a marriage alliance of her own, and now she is aggressively on the hunt for him too.
But wait, while those two factions are literally tearing the city apart, searching every luxury hotel, the Shadow Queen, Qin Mengyao, is already 3 steps ahead. Her vast network knows exactly where he is. See, Lin Feng outsmarted everyone. He rented a simple, quiet guest house in a residential area, checking in using his maid Xiaowei's ID card instead of his own. So while everyone else is running in circles, Qin Mengyao just smiles from her high-rise office, watching the chaos unfold, waiting for the perfect moment to make her move. So, Lin Feng has successfully severed ties with a toxic fiancé and a greedy family. He's setting his own terms for his life now, but with the city's most dangerous, wealthy players actively
Completely gone. He's been replaced by a level 14 powerhouse. He's buff, he's battle-scarred, and honestly, he's a bit psychopathic. When his party members in Stage 4 refused to listen and kept getting him killed, he just snapped. He physically beat them into submission until they followed his absolute command. It's a super dramatic, incredibly dark evolution of his character.
Section 1. Real-world consequences.
Okay, so the tutorial ends, and as the dungeon gates violently break open, monsters immediately flood the city streets of South Korea, and the military is just completely overwhelmed. But Hyeon isn't hiding. Knowing his sister Ayan is trapped at her office, he grabs literally the only weapon he can find, which happens to be a dirty kitchen knife from his sink, and he rushes out into the apocalypse. He just casually slaughters his way through the goblins on the street, terrifying these poor office workers as this blood-soaked, heavily muscled madman breaks down their barricade, all just to make sure his sister is safe.
Down on the streets, the army is facing this bulletproof hobgoblin that is absolutely massacring soldiers. Hyeon steps in, and the strategy he uses here is hilarious, completely unheroic, and wildly effective. Step 1. He orders the soldiers to hit it with tear gas, completely ignoring the toxic smoke himself. Step 2. He snatches up a dropped battle axe. Step 3. Recognizing its skin is way too tough, he targets its, well, let's call it its unarmored rear for a critical strike. The classic 1,000 years of pain technique. Finally, while this defiled beast is incapacitated from sheer shock and pain, he finishes it off right through the roof of its mouth.
Section 2. The Talented Education School. So, after surviving a face-to-face interview with God to graduate the tutorial, Hyeon is forced to register at a mandatory school for awakened talents. Keep in mind, he looks like a hardened thug at this point. On his very first day in class, this arrogant, overtrained bully tries to establish dominance by crushing Hyeon's hand in a handshake. The bully is stunned. He invested everything in strength, but Hyeon just activates his new Titan strength skill. Hyeon squeezes back effortlessly until the bully's arm literally pops like a balloon, splattering blood all across the classroom. Yeah, Hyeon is playing on a completely different level now.
Section 3. A Tragic Wake-Up Call.
Up until now, this whole thing has been an incredible power fantasy, right? Hyeon is leveling up, securing rare items, and completely humiliating his bullies. But reality hits him like a freight train when a dungeon breaks right next to his parents' house in the countryside. He rushes out to save them, driving and then full-on sprinting through the dark woods, but he gets ambushed. He finds himself totally surrounded by invisible wolves and these towering, mutated orcs. He fights brilliantly, using his lion's roar and titan strength, but he is just vastly outnumbered. He runs entirely out of mana, losing his regeneration abilities. And in this desperate, bloody battle to protect his family, he is beaten to a pulp and killed.
24 hours. Remember those rules of his skill in the real world we talked about? The tutorial safety net is completely gone. When he dies here, he doesn't just pop back up instantly. He is dead for a full 24 hours before resurrecting at the last place he slept, which, tragically, happens to be miles and miles away at his sister's apartment. So, he wakes up a day later with a 50% stat penalty and a lost level, feeling incredibly heavy and sluggish. He forces his exhausted body to sprint 5 straight hours on foot back to his parents' town, but he's too late. That 24-hour gap was devastating. His childhood home is completely destroyed, his father survived but he lost an arm, and his mother was left in a deep coma. It's a massive emotional climax that proves to us that even with infinite lives, Hyeon's mistakes have permanent, truly devastating consequences for the people he loves. Section 4. The Bait Guild Massacre.
This family tragedy causes a really dark shift in Hyeon. His grief basically morphs into this cold-blooded drive for power, leading to an absolutely suicidal combat strategy. He forces a corrupt guild member to guide him into a dungeon and proceeds to completely ignore his own safety just to grind for strength. He doesn't rely on massive magical firepower. Instead, he uses overwhelming physical defense, his regeneration skill, and sheer ruthlessness to just tank damage. He carves straight through an entire goblin army without resting once, soloing the dungeon core all by himself. But as he walks out of the dungeon with the boss's magic stone, he's surrounded. The Corrupt Bait Guild, which is an organization known for murdering independent talents and stealing their loot, steps in to jump him. They think he's just an exhausted solo player ripe for the picking. They are completely unaware that they just picked a fight with the human boss monster.
What follows is an absolute bloodbath. Hyeon tears through their ranks, massacring 30 guild members and leaving 50 more seriously injured. Finally, the guild boss, Yun, steps in and manages to land a fatal blow, burning Hyeon alive from the inside out. The boss thinks he's won, but Hyeon's real-world resurrection timer is up. He instantly respawns, appearing right behind the yapping guild boss, and cleanly beheads him in one swing. Just cold, calculated revenge. The Bait Guild is destroyed, his family is relatively safe for now, and Hyeon finally returns home for some well-deserved rest. But just as things seem to settle down, there is a knock at his sister's apartment door. Standing right there is Han Si-won, a tremendously powerful guildmaster who claims to know them. But Hyeon has absolutely no idea who this man is. Why?
It's an instantaneous wake-up call. There are no friendly NPCs to guide him here. It's just a crumbling stone bridge suspended over a massive sea of boiling lava. The explicit rule? Cross the bridge or burn. And when people around him actually start melting, it proves real quick that this is absolutely no dream. When the platform directly above his younger sister, Alian, begins to collapse, Hyeon doesn't even hesitate.
He leaps across the gap, making a mad dash and pulls her to safety just as the rocks fall, clearing level 1 and saving her life.
But here is where we find the ultimate game breaker. Hyen checks his status window and discovers he has a unique innate skill: resurrection. For literally anyone else, dying in a dungeon means game over. For Hyen, he simply respawns in his bed. And crucially, during this tutorial phase, there are 0 penalties for dying. It essentially takes certain death and turns it into an infinite, completely overpowered stat-grinding loophole.
5. That is exactly how many years Earth has before the connection with the apocalyptic dimension becomes permanent. The administrator reveals they have just 5 years to prepare for the end of the world. No pressure, right?
Section 2. Grinding through the stages.
With that 5-year doomsday clock ticking loudly in the background, Hyen leans hard into his resurrection loophole, just throwing himself at brutal monsters over and over. Stage 2 is an absolute nightmare of brute force perseverance. Round 1, he's mercilessly tortured by giant goblins, he dies, wakes up screaming, literally watches YouTube sword tutorials and goes right back in. By round 3, the repeated trauma breaks him mentally and he just starts laughing like a maniac. By round 5, he gives up on trying to win quickly and spends 10 straight hours to swinging a sword to artificially boost his stats. Finally, in round 7, he claims victory with a well-placed rock to a goblin's shins.
But of course, the universe isn't done messing with him. Stage 3 is all about patience. Heinlorian literally crawls through bug-infested dirt and a ghillie suit for 10 hours, channeling the legendary sniper Carlos Hathcock. He is completely undetected until a monster accidentally relieves itself right on his head. Heinlorian completely snaps. He abandons all stealth, screams at the sky, and ironically, his utter mental breakdown unlocks a massive new skill called Raging Lion's Roar. He clears the patient stage in record time, earning the incredibly comedic title Impatient One.
And things only get wilder in Stage 4, a test of leadership. We've all hated group projects, right? Well, Hyen is grouped with NPCs who refuse to listen and just constantly get him killed. After a full month of dying due to bad teamwork, he formulates a new strategy. Step 1, tell everyone to shut up. Step 2, literally beat any insubordinate party members into a fleshy paste. Step 3, guide the deeply traumatized survivors to the finish line. Amazingly, it works perfectly. But all that sheer violence actually starts physically altering his face, making him look like a hardened villain.
Moving on to Section 3, Surviving the Real World.
Suddenly, the global tutorial ends early, which means dungeons are popping up in actual cities, right outside people's windows. And here is the terrifying new reality. Back in the tutorial, Hyen was basically a god with infinite respawns, but out in the real world, that safety net is gone. His skills are locked. If he dies, it's permanent. So when a monster wave attacks his sister's office building, Hyen has to rush in with absolutely nothing but a dirty kitchen knife.
He does manage to save his sister and the military from an impenetrable hobgoblin boss, but how he pulls it off is pure cinematic chaos. Conventional weapons do absolutely nothing against this thing, so Han Jian instructs the soldiers to throw tear gas, rushes in blind, finds a rusted halberd, and delivers a highly questionable but mathematically devastating critical hit straight to the monsters behind. It's a literal 1,000 years of pain that is visceral, totally absurd, and completely saves the day.
Section 4, School for Awakeners. After surviving a succubus and passing a genuinely terrifying face-to-face interview with the Dimensional Administrator, Hyen officially completes the tutorial. But you have to consider this number, 62. Out of the billions of people on Earth, Kong Hyen is only the 62nd person globally to clear all 8 stages. He is walking into this Awakener school as a certified, top-tier anomaly.
And because of that, he is packing a mathematically overpowered arsenal. He's got Titan Strength, granting a massive plus 12 to his strength stat for 10 minutes. His tutorial graduate title adds 2.5 to all baseline stats, and his Raging Lion's Roar crushes enemy morale. Compared to standard Awakeners, he is an absolute unit.
But here is the tragic irony of Kong Hyen. He steps up to the registration desk, fully intending to be a polite, helpful hero. But because his face has morphed into that of a hardened, menacing thug, the civil servant, An Seung, literally bursts into tears just looking at him. He tries to calm her down, which of course only makes him look more like a mob boss demanding extortion money. His reputation only tanks further on day 1 of class. An overconfident, muscle-bound bully decides to test Hyen by trying to crush his hand during a handshake.
Hyan just casually activates Titan Strength, then squeezes back. Due to the sheer, unbelievable gap in their stats, the bully's arm literally bursts in a shower of blood. Hyan didn't even have to throw a punch.
From there, school life consists of boring theory in the mornings and basic weapons practice in the afternoons, but it all climaxes on day 6. Hyan engages in a high-speed spar with the elite instructor, Kim Lee-hyun. They move so fast they become blurs, exchanging heavy, shockwave-inducing blows that rattle the entire facility. It brilliantly illustrates the massive chasm in power between Hyan and everyone else.
Finally, Section 5, Guild Wars and True Heroism. Hyan graduates and steps out into a world where big guilds control the market. He starts independently farming F-rank dungeons to send cash to his parents, which unfortunately attracts the corrupt Bait Guild. They try to forcibly recruit him by threatening his family. Hyan's response? He violently dismantles their executives with his bare hands. But his true shift from a selfish grinder to a genuine hero happens when a coordinated terrorist attack triggers Korea's very first D-rank dungeon break.
As the city is overrun, Hyan finds himself alone against a monstrous lich boss. To protect his family, he makes a massive sacrifice. He activates 2 highly dangerous skills at once, Wayne's secret technique and the berserker trait. These massively spike his power but physically tear his body apart from the inside. He trades his own life force to hold the line, fighting until his body literally crumbles and he passes out.
He wakes up in a hospital, heavily bandaged, with top association presidents and guildmasters hovering over his bed. They recognize what he just did. Donggun Guildmaster Han Shan perfectly sums up Hyan's existence with this quote: "The one who protects the world doesn't have to be a good person, they just have to be strong." They honestly don't care that he looks like a villain or fights like a street thug. They know he is the weapon Earth needs to survive.
Which leaves us with this final thought. 4 of his second-order advancement missions simultaneously. Everyone thinks it's pure suicide, but he snatches a boss kill right from under an elite military commander, out-negotiates a scammer to get rare eagle feathers for pennies, and enters this wild mental anomaly dungeon. He actually outsmarts a highly intelligent sentient ghost that was hiding as a teammate. He hits second order in absolute record time. But of course, the monsters aren't the only things he needs to worry about.
The real challenge pops up in a B-ranked dungeon called the Factory of Death, because here, the most dangerous threats are human. Enter Lin Lan. She's the brutal captain of the Bloody Wolf Squad, which is a notorious farm group. These corrupt players basically force weaker awakened people to the front lines to act as human meat shields. They let the newbies tire out the boss and then swoop in to steal the legendary loot.
Lin Lan is a third-order fighter with double awakened agility and strength. She looks at Yining and the rest like they're just first- and second-order fodder. She genuinely thinks she holds all the cards here, which, wow, is she severely underestimating our guy's hidden stats.
So, after they barely survive 6 grueling waves of mutants, with Lin Lan actively torturing the survivors, the dungeon offers a vote to exit, and Yining shocks literally everyone. He votes no. By himself, he manually triggers the maximum difficulty final wave and drops a terrifying, massive third-order mutant worm straight into Lin Lan's lap. He just leaves her to be hunted.
She gets absolutely battered, nearly killed by this beast, before Yining steps in and effortlessly vaporizes it with his storm sword. Then he corners her, but instead of killing her, he utterly humiliates her. He knows she values her wealth and pride above all else, so he forces her to surrender every single piece of her ultra-rare legendary loot and completely drains her credits. He leaves her totally bankrupt and broken. It is so satisfying.
With his pockets full, the story takes a surprisingly heavy emotional turn.
Yining buys a Dark Attributes skill book and jumps into a special dungeon event called the Lost Battlefield. Teaming up with a wealthy military heir, he uncovers a really dark secret. The military has been summoning these spectral soldiers to farm loot, treating them like mindless NPCs. But they aren't NPCs. They are the trapped souls of human heroes who died defending the line against the very first zombie horde 60 years ago. They've been trapped in a never-ending loop of war for decades.
And this just hits you right in the chest. The military's so-called summon password is actually the tragic final wish of these soldiers. Marines was their code, and their dying, desperate cry was literally just wanting to go home. The army knew this, and had been exploiting that heartbreaking plea as a cheat code for 60 years.
Yining refuses to let these heroes suffer 1 second longer. He steps right up to face the dungeon's final, impossibly huge third-order mutant, and this is where he unleashes his brand new SS rank skill, Dimensional Cut.
This move lets him enter dimensional space, completely bypassing physical reality, for a perfect instant kill. He slaughters the massive beast in a single hit, finally freeing those soldiers' souls so they can rest in peace.
It's a huge victory, but the peace doesn't last long at all.
Yining even tracks down the descendants of those soldiers to build them a monument, cementing his legacy. But just as he's maxing out his stats, things get real. Walking through the Shenzhen safe zone, he suddenly realizes your life just to become humanity's strongest weapon, only to realize you're still vastly outmatched. I mean, what if you could literally rewind the apocalypse? Picture this, it's the year 2145. Humanity is facing total annihilation. Mutants have completely overrun the planet, and our protagonist, Yining, makes this desperate final stand against a colossal, nightmarish level 4 mutant. And despite giving it everything he has, he's killed. Humanity falls, and nuclear fire consumes the world. But instead of the end, Yining opens his eyes. He hasn't just survived, he's been sent back in time. He wakes up exactly 3 years in the past, year 001. But get this, he wakes up staring down the barrel of a gun. You see, in his original timeline, Yining's mandatory military talent test was completely rigged by unseen enemies, which left him destitute for years before his true power was finally discovered. And by then, it was way too late. But this time, armed with future combat experience, he instantly disarms and neutralizes his assassins. He is fiercely determined to march right into that military camp, touch the awakening crystal, and ace the very test that ruined his past life.
And when Yining finally touches that awakening crystal, the thing almost explodes. It registers an unprecedented SS-level pureblood talent. But secretly, behind the scenes, Yining unlocks the Sword God system. And the core mechanic here is absolutely broken. Any sword skill he learns is instantly upgraded to S rank, and its power is amplified 10,000 times. 10,000! It's a completely game-breaking multiplier that instantly turns him into a walking weapon of mass destruction.
Now, Yining actually wants to keep this reality-bending system under wraps, so he claims his primary awakening is just a mental-type telekinesis talent. In this era, mental types are basically considered useless support classes that can never reach the higher world-saving tiers. So what does the military do? They instantly revoke his elite seed status, pull his protection, and just abandon him, thinking he's a total dead end. The dramatic irony here is just beautiful. They literally throw away humanity's only hope, completely unaware he is hiding an overpowered SS rank arsenal.
But listen, having a completely overpowered system comes with a massive lit RPG math problem. Yining learns a basic C rank skill, which the system instantly upgrades to the SS rank Sword of the Storm. It's basically a localized apocalypse in a single swing, but it costs 4,500 psionic energy points. To put that into perspective, a top-tier Order 3 veteran only has 4,000, and Yining is starting at Order 0. Without his system's passive perk that grants him one free skill cast every 48 hours, this ultimate move would literally drain him dry. So he has to use his tactical genius, not just raw power, if he wants to survive.
Which brings us to his very first major hunt out in the wild forest. Instead of just wasting his one free nuke, Yining relies on his future knowledge to take out a deadly boss duo, a first-order peak demon tree and its hidden parasite, the Entangler. And he doesn't just hack and slash. He identifies the exact moment the parasite buffs the tree, rushes the defenses, and completely shatters the hidden core under the tree's chin. By taking them out, he claims a highly coveted psychic fruit, permanently boosting his stats. It is an absolute masterclass in exploiting boss mechanics.
Chapter 1. The Dungeon Crusher, Cadaver Academy. This is where Yining's escalation arc really kicks into high gear.
Yining desperately needs resources, right? So he steps into a deadly level C instance filled with toxic players who are just looking for an easy sacrifice. His strategy here is incredibly satisfying to watch unfold. He joins a squad playing the helpless Order 0 newbie. These arrogant veterans immediately try to use him as zombie bait so they can just steal all the loot. But Yining is miles ahead of them. While they plot his death, he secretly accepts every single hidden boss mission in the dungeon. When the players finally try to trap him, he summons 4 bosses at once, leaps off a roof, and finally unleashes his free Sword of the Storm cast. In a single earth-shattering blast, he vaporizes the bosses and the toxic players, claiming 100% completion.
The loot from that total wipeout is absolutely game-changing. He hoards a massive stash of rare blue-tier gear. The Rancor skull is vital. It amplifies his telekinesis, fixing the traditional physical weakness of a mental-type awakener by literally letting him hurl heavy rubble like rifle rounds. Add in the Thunder Boots for a massive agility spike and the Grudge Necklace to block fatal spiritual attacks, and Yenning is rapidly covering every single blind spot his class supposedly has.
Chapter 2, The Factory of Death. This is a B-rank war dungeon where things start getting much darker.
So, this dungeon is controlled by these brutal farm groups, high-level awakeners who use weak players as human shields while they just sit back and collect the rewards. Running this whole operation is Captain Lin Lan, a ruthless third-order enemy. Yanning's takedown of her is brilliant. He completely hides his power while she literally tortures the other players. After surviving 6 grueling waves, she plans to execute everyone. But Yanning secretly casts a solo vote to trigger the maximum difficulty wave 7. Suddenly, a terrifying third-order sea worm spawns. Yanning uses his Sword of the Storm to shred the mutants, leaving Lin Lan trapped and terrified. Because she has a passive barrier he can't instantly break, he psychologically corners her, extorting her for every single credit and piece of blue gear she owns before leaving her humiliated in the dirt.
And the resources he extorts fuel an absolutely insane power spike. Normally, a fully boosted second-order awakener caps out at 18 strength, but Yenning? In less than a week, he's rocking 19 strength, 18 agility, and a massive 35 will. He is actively shattering the system's hard limits, proving once and for all that the military's assessment of mental types being useless was a catastrophic miscalculation.
Chapter 3, The Lost Battlefield. This is a haunted dungeon that really forms the emotional core of our story.
This is a special event dungeon that recreates a war from the very early days of the apocalypse, born from the lingering regrets of heroes who basically held the line so civilians could escape. Morins, go home. This haunting passcode is absolutely central to the tragedy. For decades, modern military squads have been coming into this dungeon and yelling this exact phrase. Why? Because it summons the trapped heroic spirits of those fallen soldiers to fight the zombie hordes, allowing the modern players to just farm easy loot. They treat these trapped souls as expendable NPCs, and when Yenning realizes this, he is absolutely disgusted. He refuses to let these heroes be exploited as tools for greed any longer.
To actually free these souls, Yenning has to defeat a colossal third-order supermutant without relying on the spirits. So he unveils his newest, most terrifying ability yet, Dimensional Cut. This SS-rank dark attack doesn't just do damage, it actually tears open space itself. For a split second, Yenning steps into a dimensional void where time literally stops, granting him complete invincibility and the ability to ignore all enemy defenses.
Uses this insane skill to literally slice the supermutant right in half in the blink of an eye. With the boss dead, Yenning screams the passcode, finally releasing the heroic spirits so they can rest. He clears the dungeon with an SS rating, pushes to the absolute peak of the Second Order, and uses his own hard-earned credits to fund a real-world monument in the soldier's hometown. It proves that beneath his ruthless tactical exterior, Yenning fights for humanity's soul just as much as its survival.
Chapter 4. A Target on His Back. The hunter becomes the hunted. But hey, no good deed goes unpunished, right? Yenning's explosive growth and reality-bending feats have drawn the absolute wrong kind of attention. As he's walking through the safe zone city center, the hairs on the back of his neck stand up. He is being stalked by a third-order killer. Is it a military commander who realized Yenning stole his loot? Or maybe an assassin hired by the humiliated Lin Lan? With his overpowered skills on cooldown, Yenning ducks into a high-end hotel, using a rebellious, wealthy heiress named Yen Yukin as an unwitting disguise to slip past the assassin. But how long can he really hide? And what happens when the military finally